Raising Kids with Clarity, a purposeful parenting roadmap to cultivate emotional intelligence, healthy routines, calm communication, and secure confidence in your child. Written by Hazel Lawrence. Narrated by Devin Caraway. Introduction. The greatest gift you can give your children is not protection from change, challenge, or difficulty, but the confidence and tools to cope and grow with all that life has to offer them. Jessica Joelle Alexander. When my son melted down in the cereal aisle, a full-body, ear-splitting tantrum that left me frozen between embarrassment and frustration, I realized that all my careful research and good intentions hadn't prepared me for this moment. Later that evening, as I reflected on my reactive and less than stellar response, I wondered how many other parents were sitting in their kitchens feeling equally lost. That question became the seed for the guide you're listening to now. Through years of working with families and raising my own children, I've witnessed firsthand the struggle that comes with navigating the overwhelming sea of parenting advice. We're bombarded with contradictory methods, each promising miraculous results while inadvertently deepening our self-doubt. In conversations with parents across different backgrounds, one theme emerged consistently: the yearning for clarity amidst the noise. Maria, a physician and mother of 3, confided that despite her medical training, she felt completely unprepared for guiding her children's emotional development. James, a single father, described the paralysis of choice he experienced when trying to establish consistent routines for his daughter. And Priya, raising 2 boys in a multi-generational household, struggling to balance cultural traditions with contemporary parenting approaches. Their stories, and perhaps yours, reveal that intelligence and dedication aren't enough. What we need is a roadmap grounded in both science and practicality. Beyond quick fixes. This audiobook doesn't offer overnight solutions or rigid formulas. Instead, it provides a framework for purposeful parenting built on 4 pillars: cultivating emotional intelligence, establishing healthy routines, practicing calm communication, and nurturing secure confidence. The approach is rooted in attachment theory, neuroscience, and developmental psychology. But don't worry, you won't need a scientific background to apply these principles. I've distilled complex research into accessible strategies that work in real homes with real children who have real feelings. You'll find that small, consistent actions create the foundation for lasting change. The moment you shift from reactive to responsive parenting, you begin creating neural pathways in your child's brain that will serve them throughout their lifetime. A collective wisdom. This audiobook wouldn't exist without the insights shared by hundreds of families who opened their homes and hearts to my research. Their triumphs and struggles have informed every part of this guide. I'm particularly indebted to my colleagues at the Child Development Institute, who challenged my assumptions and expanded my understanding of how children thrive. My gratitude extends to the researchers whose groundbreaking work on emotional intelligence and resilience has transformed our understanding of childhood development. Dr. Maya Wilson's mentorship proved invaluable, as did the editorial guidance of Sam Taylor, who insisted I create this audiobook when I doubted I had anything new to contribute. Your parenting journey. You're here because something in your parenting journey feels unsettled. Perhaps you're seeking validation that your instincts are sound. Maybe you're looking for practical tools to address specific challenges. Or possibly, like many of us, you simply want to ensure you're doing right by the young lives entrusted to your care. Whatever brought you here, know that perfect parenting doesn't exist. And that's liberating news. The goal isn't perfection, but presence and purpose. Even on days when nothing goes according to plan, your commitment to growth makes all the difference. This audiobook is created for parents of children from toddlerhood through early adolescence, though many principles apply across broader age ranges. You don't need specialized knowledge to begin, just an open heart and willingness to see your child as a whole person navigating a complex world. As you listen, I invite you to be gentle with yourself. Parenting is perhaps the most profound responsibility we'll ever undertake, and it deserves both your dedication and your self-compassion. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey. The fact that you're seeking knowledge already demonstrates your commitment to thoughtful parenting. I'm confident that as you integrate these principles into your family life, you'll discover not just a more harmonious household, but deeper connections with the remarkable young people you're raising. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The EQ Edge. Cultivating Emotional Intelligence. Why your child's heart may matter more than the report card. In a world fixated on academic achievements and standardized test scores, we've overlooked something fundamental. A child's emotional intelligence often predicts their life success more accurately than grades ever could. While helping your 8-year-old master multiplication tables feels tangible and necessary, teaching them to identify and regulate their emotions might actually be the more valuable lesson. This isn't merely parental intuition. It's backed by decades of research, showing that children with developed emotional intelligence navigate life's complexities with remarkable resilience and adaptability. The landscape of parenting has changed dramatically in recent years. Between the constant pull of technology, mounting academic pressures, and a society that seems to move at an ever-accelerating pace, raising emotionally balanced children has become increasingly challenging. Many parents find themselves drowning in contradictory advice, wondering if they're doing enough to prepare their children, not just for school success, but for life success. This uncertainty is what Raising Kids with Clarity aims to address, providing a roadmap that balances intellectual development with the equally crucial emotional and social learning. Emotional intelligence isn't a trendy parenting concept, but a fundamental set of skills that shapes how children perceive themselves and interact with the world around them. Research consistently demonstrates that children with higher emotional intelligence demonstrate remarkable advantages. They manage stress more effectively, form healthier relationships, and perhaps surprisingly to some parents, often perform better academically than their peers who excel intellectually but struggle emotionally. This insight challenges the traditional hierarchy of developmental priorities that many families unconsciously adopt. What makes emotional intelligence so powerful is its compound effect throughout childhood and beyond. When children develop the ability to understand and manage their emotions early, they create positive cycles that enhance learning, social connections, and self-confidence. Conversely, when emotional development is overlooked, even the brightest children may struggle with anxiety, conflict resolution, or finding meaning in their achievements. Throughout this chapter, we'll explore how emotional intelligence impacts your child's ability to handle life's inevitable stresses and build meaningful relationships, skills that no academic credential can replace. The good news is that emotional intelligence isn't fixed at birth. It can be cultivated through intentional parenting approaches that we'll explore together. Unlike IQ, which remains relatively stable, a child's emotional intelligence can grow significantly with the proper guidance and experiences. This chapter will introduce practical ways to integrate emotional and social learning into your daily family life, treating these skills with the same importance you might give to reading, writing, or mathematics. You'll discover how ordinary moments, from bedtime routines to playground conflicts, can become powerful opportunities for emotional growth. Building the foundation for lifelong success. In the chapters that follow, we'll expand upon this emotional intelligence foundation to address specific challenges modern parents face. We'll explore how establishing healthy routines creates security, how communication patterns shape your child's internal dialogue, and how confidence emerges from competence and connection rather than empty praise. Throughout the audiobook, you'll find that emotional intelligence serves as the cornerstone for each of these developmental areas. This first chapter sets our course by examining the science behind emotional intelligence and its profound impact on children's development. We'll identify the key components of emotional intelligence that deserve your attention as a parent, explore how brain development and emotional learning intersect, and outline specific approaches to nurture these capabilities in children of different ages and temperaments. Rather than adding more to your parenting plate, you'll discover how shifting your perspective on what truly matters can actually simplify your daily interactions while deepening their impact. By challenging the false dichotomy between emotional well-being and academic success, this chapter invites you to envision a more integrated approach to raising your children. The skills that help a child manage disappointment, communicate effectively, and understand others' perspectives aren't just nice-to-have social graces. They're essential tools for navigating an increasingly complex world. When we prioritize emotional intelligence alongside traditional learning, we prepare our children not just to succeed in school, but to flourish in life. Let's begin this journey toward raising children who possess both the intellectual capacity and the emotional wisdom to create meaningful, balanced lives. The emotional landscape that defines us. Susan Morgan sat at her kitchen table, listening to the rain tap against the window panes. The school progress reports lay in front of her, stark white against the worn oak table. She picked up her son's first, then her daughter's, eyes moving over the numbers and letters that supposedly measured their worth in the world. Daniel excelled in math and science, but struggled with reading comprehension. Emily showed remarkable aptitude in creative writing, but her math scores had dropped. The school counselor had suggested tutoring, extra homework, and test prep courses. She set down the papers and looked out at the gray afternoon. The neighbor's dog barked twice, then fell silent. The sound of the furnace clicking on filled the quiet house. Susan remembered her own childhood, the pressure to perform, the late nights studying for tests that seemed to determine her entire future. Her father's tight smile when she brought home a B+ instead of an A. The way her mother asked about everyone else's grades. The knot in her stomach formed every Sunday night and didn't unravel until Friday afternoon. "They're just children," she whispered to the empty kitchen. Last week, Daniel had come home in tears after a group project went wrong. Not because of the grade, but because he couldn't understand why his classmate had gotten angry and stormed off. Emily had been invited to 3 birthday parties, but dreaded going to any of them, preferring to read alone in her room. Susan had pushed her to go to the first one. She remembered her daughter's face when she picked her up. Not unhappy, exactly, but depleted, as if the social interaction had drained something vital in her. The book on child development lay on the counter where she had left it that morning. The chapter on emotional intelligence had struck something in her, a chord that resonated with her own experiences. The author argued that teaching children to understand and manage their emotions mattered more than perfect scores, that empathy and self-regulation predicted success better than standardized tests. Susan thought about Daniel's science fair project, how excited he had been to explain cloud formation to his younger sister, his patience when Emily didn't understand right away, his pride not in the blue ribbon, but in making something complicated seem simple. From the hallway came the sound of the front door opening, followed by the thump of backpacks hitting the floor. "Mom," Daniel called, "can we have a snack?" Susan closed the reports and slipped them back into their folder. Her children burst into the kitchen, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes bright. Emily launched into a story about recess, while Daniel opened the refrigerator, searching for apples and peanut butter. Susan watched them move around the space, their bodies alive with energy and purpose. She thought about what she wanted for them, truly wanted, beyond grades and college admissions and career prospects. She wanted them whole, resilient, capable of joy and recovery from disappointment, capable of connecting with others without losing themselves. The rain beat harder against the glass. Susan reached for the parenting book, her mind turning over the possibilities of a different approach. Her own parents had given her what they thought she needed: structure, discipline, high expectations. She had succeeded by most conventional measures. But at what cost? And what would her children need to navigate a world that moved faster, demanded more, and changed in ways no one could predict? Perhaps the greatest gift she could give them wasn't pushing them towards academic perfection, but teaching them to understand their inner weather, the storms of anger, the sunshine of joy, the foggy confusion of growing up. Perhaps emotional intelligence wasn't a luxury, but a necessity, as vital as learning to read or calculate. What if the measure of her success as a parent wasn't reflected in report cards and awards, but in something less tangible, in how her children faced disappointment, and how they treated others, in their capacity for empathy and self-awareness that would carry them through the inevitable hardships of life? The foundation of future success. How emotional intelligence shapes children. Emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions in oneself and others, serves as a cornerstone for children's overall development. Unlike IQ, which has long dominated conversations about success, emotional intelligence, EQ, has emerged as a more comprehensive predictor of how well children navigate life's challenges. Research consistently shows that children with well-developed emotional intelligence demonstrate greater resilience when facing stressful situations. They recover more quickly from setbacks and approach problems with a solution-oriented mindset, rather than becoming overwhelmed or shutting down. Think of emotional intelligence as the invisible infrastructure supporting a child's life. Just as a building needs a strong foundation to withstand storms, children need emotional skills to weather life's inevitable difficulties. When this foundation is solid, it can bend without breaking, adapting to new challenges with flexibility rather than rigidity. When it's weak, even minor stresses can cause significant disruption to their well-being and relationships. The connection between emotional intelligence and relationship quality cannot be overstated. Children with higher EQ can identify not only their own feelings, but also recognize emotions in others, enabling more meaningful conversations. Studies conducted at Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence found that children who can accurately read emotional cues are significantly more likely to maintain positive peer relationships and experience less conflict with adults. These children understand how their behavior impacts others, allowing them to navigate social situations with greater awareness and sensitivity. Emotional intelligence skills develop through consistent practice and supportive guidance. When parents validate children's feelings without judgment, they teach that emotions themselves aren't good or bad. They're simply information. This validation creates a safe space for children to express themselves authentically. Over time, children learn that all feelings are acceptable, though not all behaviors are. This critical distinction helps them develop healthy emotional regulation, the ability to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. The stress management benefits of emotional intelligence become increasingly important as children grow. Young people with strong emotional awareness can identify when they're becoming anxious or frustrated before these feelings escalate. They develop personal strategies, whether taking deep breaths, going for a walk, or talking with a trusted person, that help them return to a centered state. This self-regulation doesn't happen automatically. It requires adults who model these skills and provide opportunities for practice in real-world situations. Relationship challenges provide perfect opportunities for emotional intelligence development. When conflicts arise between siblings or friends, emotionally intelligent children can step back from their immediate reactions to consider multiple perspectives. They're more likely to use "I feel" statements rather than blame, to listen actively, and to work toward resolution rather than simply winning an argument. These skills translate directly to future success in teamwork, leadership, and intimate relationships. Children with well-developed emotional intelligence possess an essential toolkit for life's challenges. They can identify and manage strong feelings, communicate their needs effectively, understand others' perspectives, and maintain relationships even through difficult conversations. Integrating emotional learning into everyday parenting. Making emotional and social learning an everyday priority doesn't require special training or elaborate activities. The most powerful teaching happens in ordinary moments. When a child becomes frustrated with a difficult homework assignment, parents have an opportunity to help name the feeling. It seems like you're feeling frustrated right now. Validate it. It's completely normal to feel that way when something is challenging. And guide problem solving. Would it help to take a short break or try a different approach? These interactions build emotional vocabulary and create pathways for processing complicated feelings. Many parents worry that focusing on emotions might somehow make their children less resilient or more emotionally reactive. The opposite is true. Research from Harvard Center on the Developing Child demonstrates that children who can identify and discuss their feelings actually become more emotionally stable over time. When emotions are acknowledged rather than suppressed, they lose their overwhelming power. Children learn that feelings come and go. They're temporary visitors, not permanent residents. Emotional learning happens through conversation, but even more powerfully through modeling. Children observe how parents handle frustration, disappointment, and conflict. When parents can acknowledge their own emotions and demonstrate healthy coping strategies, they provide a living template for emotional intelligence. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, so I'm going to take 5 deep breaths before we continue this discussion. Offers children both permission to have complicated feelings and practical strategies for managing them. Think of emotional and social learning as similar to learning a language. Just as children develop vocabulary and grammar through daily conversation, they develop emotional intelligence through regular discussions about feelings. Parents who incorporate emotional language into everyday interactions, such as, "You seem disappointed that we can't go to the park today," or, "I noticed you're excited about your science project," help children build a rich emotional vocabulary that serves them throughout life. Shared reading offers another powerful avenue for emotional learning. Children's books often portray characters navigating complex feelings and social situations. Discussing how book characters feel, why they might feel that way, and how they handle those feelings provides a safe space to explore emotions one step removed. How do you think the character felt when her friend wouldn't share? Have you ever felt that way? What helped you feel better? These conversations build emotional awareness and empathy simultaneously. Family routines can be intentionally structured to support emotional learning. A daily highs and lows discussion at dinner gives everyone practice sharing feelings in a supportive environment. Family meetings provide opportunities to solve problems collaboratively, teaching children that their perspective matters and that conflicts can be resolved respectfully. Even brief check-ins. What's one word that describes how you're feeling right now? Strengthen the emotional awareness muscle. Technology offers both challenges and opportunities for emotional learning. While excessive screen time can limit face-to-face interactions that build social skills, thoughtfully chosen apps, videos, and games can support emotional development. Programs that prompt reflection on feelings, teach conflict resolution, or encourage perspective-taking can complement real-world emotional learning. The key is balance. Technology as a supplement to, not a replacement for, human connection. Physical activity plays a surprisingly important role in emotional intelligence development. Regular movement helps children develop body awareness, which forms the foundation for emotional awareness. Many children first experience emotions as physical sensations: butterflies in the stomach, tightness in the chest, clenched fists. Activities that connect mind and body from sports to yoga to dance, help children recognize these physical cues and respond appropriately. The playground becomes a laboratory for emotional learning as children navigate taking turns, winning and losing, and collaborating towards shared goals. What if the time you spend helping your child understand their emotions today becomes their most significant asset in navigating relationships, challenges, and opportunities throughout their entire life? The lifelong advantages of emotional intelligence. The benefits of emotional intelligence extend far beyond childhood and adolescence. Longitudinal studies tracking children from early education through adulthood consistently demonstrate that emotional intelligence predicts life satisfaction more accurately than traditional academic metrics alone. Adults with strong emotional skills report greater workplace success, more satisfying relationships, and better mental health outcomes. These findings shouldn't surprise us. The ability to understand ourselves and connect meaningfully with others forms the foundation for virtually every aspect of human experience. Academic performance itself improves when emotional intelligence skills are strong. This connection works through multiple pathways. First, emotionally intelligent students manage test anxiety more effectively, preventing emotional overwhelm from interfering with cognitive performance. Second, they maintain better relationships with teachers and peers, creating a supportive learning environment. Third, they demonstrate greater persistence when facing academic challenges, viewing difficulties as opportunities for growth rather than threats to self-worth. The data is compelling. Schools implementing social-emotional learning programs report average achievement gains of 11 percentile points compared to control groups. Think of emotional intelligence as a master key that unlocks multiple doors to success. While technical skills might open specific opportunities, emotional intelligence allows people to thrive within those opportunities. The most brilliant mathematician still needs to collaborate with colleagues, communicate ideas clearly, manage frustration when problems prove difficult, and maintain motivation through setbacks. These soft skills often determine whether hard skills translate into meaningful achievement. The workplace advantages of emotional intelligence become increasingly evident as children grow into adults. A landmark study by Talent Smart found that emotional intelligence is the strongest predictor of job performance, accounting for 58% of success across all job types. Employers consistently rank emotional intelligence capabilities, effective communication, teamwork, adaptability, and problem-solving among their most desired qualities in new hires. By investing in children's emotional development, parents prepare them for workplace success in ways that content knowledge alone cannot. The Hour Framework, a roadmap for emotional intelligence development. The Emotional Intelligence Development Framework provides parents with a structured approach to nurturing emotional skills in children. This practical model, which I call the Hour Framework, A for awareness, U for understanding, A for application, R for reflection. The Hour Framework breaks down the complex process of emotional intelligence development into manageable components. Each stage builds upon the previous one, creating a continuous cycle of growth for both children and parents. Awareness, recognizing emotional realities. The awareness stage forms the foundation of emotional intelligence development. This initial phase focuses on helping children recognize and name their feelings as they occur. Parents can support this process by creating an emotionally safe environment where all feelings are acknowledged without judgment. Simple phrases like, "I notice you're smiling. You seem happy about finishing your project," help children connect internal experiences with emotional language. Awareness extends beyond identifying one's own emotions to recognizing feelings in others. Parents can draw attention to facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. Did you notice how your sister's voice got quieter when you took her toy? She seemed disappointed. These observations help children develop emotional literacy, the ability to read emotional cues accurately. For parents, this stage involves self-awareness as well. By noticing and acknowledging their own emotional responses, parents not only model emotional awareness, but also identify patterns that might help or hinder their child's emotional development. A parent who recognizes their tendency to minimize negative emotions, "You're fine, it's not a big deal," can consciously shift toward validation. "That really disappointed you, didn't it?" Understanding, building emotional knowledge. While awareness focuses on recognition, understanding delves deeper into the why behind emotions. This stage helps children grasp that emotions serve important purposes, providing information about their needs and experiences. Through age-appropriate conversations, parents can explain connections between events and feelings. "You might feel frustrated because you tried hard but couldn't complete the puzzle. Frustration often happens when something is more difficult than we expected." Understanding also encompasses empathy development, the ability to comprehend others' emotional experiences. Parents can nurture empathy through perspective-taking questions. "How do you think your friend felt when he wasn't invited to the play? Have you ever felt left out?" These discussions help children recognize that others have inner emotional lives just as complex as their own. Another key aspect of understanding involves learning that emotions aren't permanent states. Children benefit from knowing that feelings, even intense ones, eventually change. Parents can reinforce this concept by acknowledging when emotions shift. "Earlier, you were really upset about the canceled playdate, but now you seem to be enjoying our game together. Feelings change, don't they?" Application. Emotions in action. The application stage moves from knowledge to practice, focusing on how children can use emotional understanding in real-life situations. This involves developing strategies for emotional regulation, ways to manage feelings without feeling overwhelmed by them. Parents can introduce simple techniques like deep breathing, counting to 10, or taking a brief break when emotions run high. The application also includes communication skills, expressing feelings appropriately, and listening to others. Role-playing provides a valuable practice. "Let's pretend I took your toy without asking. How could you tell me that made you feel angry without yelling or hitting?" These rehearsals prepare children for actual social interactions, giving them language and approaches to try when emotions intensify. Problem solving represents another crucial application area. When conflicts arise, parents can guide children through a process of identifying the problem, considering possible solutions, anticipating consequences, and selecting an approach. This systematic method helps children apply emotional intelligence to practical challenges. "You both want the same toy. What are some ways we could solve this problem so you both feel okay about it?" Reflection. Learning from experience. The reflection stage completes the cycle by creating opportunities to process emotional experiences after they occur. During calm moments, parents can invite children to consider recent situations. "Remember yesterday when you got so frustrated with your homework? What happened right before you started feeling that way? What helped you feel better?" These conversations reinforce learning and help children develop emotional awareness. Reflection benefits from a growth-oriented perspective that focuses on progress rather than perfection. Parents can acknowledge improvements. "I noticed that when your brother took your controller today, you used your words instead of grabbing it back. That showed real emotional control." This positive reinforcement strengthens developing skills and builds confidence. The reflection stage isn't limited to challenging situations. Positive emotional experiences also warrant discussion. "You seemed really proud when you figured out that math problem on your own. What did that feel like inside your body? What thoughts were you having?" These conversations help children develop a complete emotional vocabulary that encompasses the full spectrum of human experience. The dynamic nature of the hour framework. While presented as sequential stages, the hour framework functions as a continuous cycle rather than a linear progression. Families may move through all 4 stages during a single emotional event, or focus on different stages at different times. A toddler might need more emphasis on awareness, while an older child might be ready for deeper reflection. The framework's flexibility allows parents to meet children where they are developmentally. The hour approach also recognizes that emotional intelligence development doesn't follow a straight path. Children and adults may show advanced skills in some areas while needing more support in others. A child might excel at identifying emotions, yet struggle with regulation, or demonstrate strong empathy while having difficulty expressing their own feelings. The framework accommodates these variations, allowing parents to emphasize the components most relevant to their child's current needs. Perhaps most importantly, the hour framework creates opportunities for parallel growth in parents and children. As parents guide their children through each stage, they simultaneously develop their own emotional intelligence. This shared learning strengthens the parent-child relationship while building skills that benefit every family member in all areas of life. Emotional intelligence forms the cornerstone of children's future success, enhancing their ability to manage stress and build relationships today while laying the groundwork for academic achievement and life satisfaction tomorrow. By integrating emotional learning into daily interactions and applying frameworks like OUR, parents can nurture these critical skills as intentionally as they support traditional academic development. The competitive advantage of compassion. The emphasis on emotional intelligence isn't merely about creating happier children, though that alone would justify the effort. In today's rapidly changing world, emotional intelligence provides a distinct competitive advantage. While technical knowledge quickly becomes outdated, emotional skills remain perpetually relevant. The ability to collaborate across differences, adapt to changing circumstances, and maintain motivation through challenges becomes increasingly valuable as automation transforms the workplace landscape. A study published in the Harvard Business Review highlighted this shift. The most successful leaders of the future will focus on soft skills, inspiring, motivating, and coaching others, while delegating many technical tasks to machines. By nurturing children's emotional intelligence, parents prepare them for leadership roles that prioritize uniquely human capabilities. These emotionally intelligent leaders will approach challenges with both analytical rigor and empathic understanding, creating solutions that address both practical needs and human concerns. In a complex world, the most valuable skill is not technical expertise, but emotional agility. The capacity to navigate uncertainty, connect authentically with others, and learn continuously. Dr. Susan David, Harvard Medical School psychologist. The benefits of emotional intelligence extend beyond career success to personal well-being. Research from the field of positive psychology consistently demonstrates that meaningful relationships contribute more to life satisfaction than material success or achievement alone. By developing the emotional skills that nurture connection, children gain access to the most reliable source of happiness humans have discovered. Their capacity for deep friendship, intimate partnership, and community engagement becomes a wellspring of fulfillment throughout life. Investing in children's emotional intelligence offers returns that compound over decades, creating advantages in learning, relationships, work, and overall well-being that far exceed the already significant immediate benefits. The emotional intelligence advantage. Throughout this chapter, we've explored how emotional intelligence forms the foundation of your child's well-being and future success. The research is clear. Children who develop strong emotional intelligence navigate life's challenges more effectively, build healthier relationships, and often achieve greater academic success than those focused solely on intellectual development. By integrating emotional learning into your daily parenting approach, you're providing your child with tools that extend far beyond report cards and test scores. When you validate feelings, model emotional regulation, and create space for authentic expression, you're cultivating skills that will serve your child throughout their entire life journey. Remember that emotional intelligence isn't an innate trait, but rather a set of skills that can be taught, practiced, and refined over time. The small amounts matter. When you pause to help your child name their feelings during a meltdown, when you demonstrate calm problem-solving during family conflicts, or when you celebrate their empathy towards others. The path to raising emotionally intelligent children isn't always straightforward. There will be days when both you and your child struggle. What matters most is consistency and intentionality in your approach. Each conversation about feelings, each moment of connection, and each opportunity to practice emotional skills builds upon the last. As we move forward in this audiobook, we'll explore how emotional intelligence serves as the bedrock for the other essential elements of purposeful parenting: establishing healthy routines, mastering calm communication techniques, and building genuine confidence. These elements work together, creating a comprehensive approach that honors your child's complete development. You've already taken the most important step by recognizing that emotional intelligence deserves equal billing with academic achievement. This shift in perspective opens up tremendous possibilities for your parenting journey and your child's future. The coming chapters will equip you with practical strategies to transform this awareness into daily actions that nurture your child's emotional landscape while creating a home environment where everyone thrives. You'll discover how structured routines can provide the security children need to explore their emotions safely, how thoughtful communication can deepen your connection, and how authentic confidence grows from emotional self-awareness. The journey ahead is both challenging and deeply rewarding. As you implement these approaches, you'll likely notice subtle shifts. Perhaps your child begins to articulate feelings more clearly, recovers more quickly from disappointments, or shows greater empathy toward siblings. These moments represent the foundations of lifelong emotional resilience taking root. Trust the process and be patient with yourself and your child as you practice these skills together. The emotional intelligence edge you're cultivating isn't about preparing your child for future success. It's about enriching your family life right now, creating deeper connections and more joyful interactions every day. Are you ready to continue this journey? Let's move forward together, building on this emotional foundation to create a purposeful parenting approach that supports your child's complete development and strengthens your family bonds for years to come. Chapter 2. Clear over control. Communication that empowers. When "because I said so" isn't enough. The power of clear communication. Children thrive when they understand the why behind rules and expectations. While many parents default to control-based approaches, research consistently shows that clarity in communication creates more resilient, confident children. The shift from strict enforcement to thoughtful explanation represents one of the most profound evolutions in modern parenting. When we move beyond the need to control our children's every move and instead focus on communicating with clarity, we open pathways to their independence and self-assurance that might otherwise remain closed. Parents often fall into patterns of rigid control because it seems efficient in the short term. A quick "no" or "because I said so" can end a discussion immediately. However, this approach fails to equip children with the reasoning skills they need for independent decision-making later in life. When children don't understand the logic behind rules, they either follow blindly or rebel without comprehension of consequences. Neither outcome fosters the emotional intelligence and decision-making capacity that today's world demands of our children. Communication that prioritizes clarity over control doesn't mean abandoning boundaries or structure. Rather, it means explaining those boundaries in ways that make sense to children at their developmental stage. When you clearly articulate expectations and provide consistent reasoning, you're not just managing behavior in the moment, you're building a foundation for your child's future judgment. This approach respects children as thinking beings, capable of understanding and participating in the logic of family life. Consider the difference between telling a child, "No screens before homework, that's the rule," versus explaining, "I'd like you to finish homework before screens because your brain is fresher earlier in the day, and having homework done means you can fully enjoy your free time without worry." The second approach invites cooperation rather than compliance. It treats the child as a partner in their own development rather than a subject to be controlled. This partnership model of parenting fosters both responsibility and respect that extends far beyond any single interaction. The transition from control to clarity doesn't happen overnight. Parents who have relied on authority-based approaches might find it challenging to shift toward more transparent communication. You might worry that explanations will open the door to endless negotiations or undermine your authority. In this chapter, we'll address these concerns and show how clarity actually strengthens your parental influence while simultaneously developing your child's critical thinking skills. Throughout the following sections, we'll explore 3 critical dimensions of clarity-focused communication. First, we'll examine why strict control often backfires and how clarity offers a more effective alternative. You'll discover the neurological and psychological reasons why children respond better to understanding than to pure authority. Next, we'll provide practical strategies for articulating your expectations and reasoning in age-appropriate ways that children can genuinely process and internalize. Finally, we'll share specific techniques that encourage autonomous decision-making, helping your child develop the confidence to navigate choices with increasing independence. This chapter isn't about abandoning your role as a guide and guardian in your child's life. Instead, it's about fulfilling that role more effectively through communication that empowers rather than restricts. When children understand the reasoning behind family rules and expectations, they're more likely to internalize those values and carry them forward, even when you're not present to enforce them. The ultimate goal of parenting isn't producing obedient children, but raising thoughtful adults who make wise choices based on sound principles they truly understand. As we move through these concepts together, consider your current communication patterns with your children. Where might you be relying on control when clarity would serve you better? How might your family dynamics shift if understanding became as crucial as compliance? The journey towards clarity-based communication is both challenging and rewarding, one that transforms not just your children's development, but often your entire approach to parenthood. The weight of unspoken words. The morning sun broke through the half-drawn curtains, casting long rectangles of light across the kitchen floor. Thomas Harding stood at the counter, coffee mug in hand, watching his 14-year-old daughter, Ella, push cereal around her bowl. The silence between them stretched thin as a wire. 3 days had passed since their argument about the school dance. 3 days of minimal conversation, of Ella slipping into her room the moment dinner finished, of doors that closed just a bit too firmly. He took a sip of his coffee, bitter and black. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked twice, then fell silent. Thomas cleared his throat. "You'll miss the bus if you don't finish soon." His words hung in the air, practical but empty. Ella looked up, her eyes carrying the weight of things unsaid. "I'm not hungry." She pushed the bowl away and stood, chair legs scraping against the tile floor. Thomas watched her shoulder her backpack, noticed how she seemed smaller somehow, folded in on herself. He remembered when she would chatter through breakfast, stories spilling out between bites of toast, questions tumbling after questions. When had the silence begun? "Ella," he said, setting down his mug. She paused at the doorway, back still turned. "About the dance." He stopped, searching for the right words. In his mind, the rules had seemed so clear. No unchaperoned events for a 14-year-old, no staying out past 9, no rides with teenage drivers. Simple boundaries to keep her safe. But the look on her face when he'd laid down the law, it had stayed with him, haunted his sleep. Not anger, not exactly. Disappointment mixed with something else, something that looked uncomfortably like resignation. The kitchen faucet dripped. 1, 2. Thomas thought about his own father, a man of few words and rigid rules. "Because I said so," had been the beginning and end of most discussions. Thomas had sworn he would parent differently, but here he stood, watching his daughter turn away. "I've been thinking," he continued. "I haven't really explained why I was concerned about the dance." Ella turned slightly, still poised for flight, but listening now. Outside, the school bus rumbled down the street, its brakes squealing as it stopped 2 houses away. "I'll drive you today," Thomas said quickly, "if that's okay." In the car, with the neutral territory of the road before them and the dashboard between them, words came easier. Thomas spoke of his own teenage years, of a friend who'd been hurt at an unsupervised party, of the fear that lived in all parents. He spoke not of rules, but of reasons. Ella watched the passing houses, silent at first, then offering quiet questions, small windows into her thoughts. "I'm not a child anymore," she said as they pulled up to the school, her voice soft but firm. The morning sun caught the copper in her hair, so like her mother's. "I need to learn to make choices." Thomas nodded slowly. "You're right," he said, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Maybe we can work out a plan for the dance together. Something that addresses my concerns but gives you some independence too." The word felt right on his tongue. Independence. Not something to fear, but to foster. Ella's smile appeared, small but real. "Tonight?" she asked. "We could talk about it at dinner?" "Tonight," Thomas agreed, watching as she stepped out of the car, standing taller than she had at breakfast. As he drove away, Thomas wondered how many other conversations they'd missed, how many thoughts and feelings remained unexpressed behind the walls of his rules. He'd built the wall to protect her, but walls kept people out as much as they kept them in. Perhaps true safety came not from control, but from understanding, from clarity that built bridges instead of barriers. He turned toward home, thinking of all the words they might say to each other now, and all the listening they might do. What would happen to their relationship if, instead of controlling her actions, he committed to understanding her thoughts? Breaking free from strict control. Parenting styles fundamentally shape our children's development, influencing everything from their emotional well-being to their decision-making abilities. Traditional authoritarian parenting focuses heavily on control, rules, and obedience, with children expected to follow instructions without question. This approach may create immediate compliance, but often carries significant long-term costs. Research consistently shows that children raised under strict control frequently experience high levels of anxiety, reduced self-confidence, and difficulty making independent decisions as they mature. They learn to rely on external validation and direction rather than developing their own inner compass. Think of strict control as building a fence around a garden. Initially, the fence protects the plants from outside threats, keeping them safe within defined boundaries. But what happens when those plants eventually need to be transplanted? Without having developed strong, independent root systems, they struggle to thrive in new environments. Similarly, children raised under rigid control often find themselves ill-equipped to handle freedom when they inevitably encounter it. The drawbacks of control-focused parenting extend beyond emotional impacts. When children are constantly directed rather than guided, they miss crucial opportunities to develop critical thinking skills. They may follow rules at home, but lack understanding of why these rules matter, making them vulnerable to peer pressure or poor decision-making when parental oversight is absent. Studies from developmental psychology suggest that children who primarily experience strict control without accompanying explanations tend to either rebel dramatically as teenagers or become overly dependent on authority figures throughout life. Clarity-focused communication offers a powerful alternative. Unlike control, which centers on parental authority, clarity prioritizes understanding and collaboration. When parents communicate expectations clearly while explaining the reasoning behind rules, children gain insight into the values and principles that guide family decisions. This approach transforms rules from arbitrary restrictions into meaningful boundaries that make sense. Clear communication involves age-appropriate explanations, consistent messaging, and openness to questions, creating an environment where children feel respected rather than merely managed. The difference between control and clarity appears vividly in how children internalize lessons. A child told simply, "Because I said so," learns only to obey authority, while a child who receives clear explanations about safety, respect, or responsibility develops an understanding of underlying principles that can apply across situations. This distinction matters tremendously when children inevitably face scenarios where parents aren't present to provide directions. The child raised with clarity possesses internal guidance rather than merely following external commands. Consider how you might explain household rules to a visitor versus simply enforcing them. With visitors, we naturally share the reasoning behind house customs, where shoes go, how recycling works, and when quiet hours begin. We don't just issue commands. We provide context that makes compliance easier and more meaningful. Clarity-focused parenting applies this same courtesy to our children, recognizing that understanding fosters willing cooperation far more effectively than authority alone ever could. What makes clarity truly transformative is how it empowers children to develop autonomy. When parents consistently communicate expectations with transparent reasoning, children gradually learn to anticipate appropriate behavior and make sound decisions independently. They begin to understand not just what is expected, but why it matters, connecting actions to values in ways that strict control simply cannot achieve. This understanding forms the foundation for genuine self-regulation, where children choose positive behaviors because they understand their importance rather than merely to avoid punishment. The developmental benefits of clarity over control emerge across multiple domains. Children raised with clear, reasoned communication typically demonstrate stronger problem-solving abilities, better emotional regulation, more nuanced moral reasoning, and healthier relationships with authority figures. They develop what psychologists call internal locus of control, the belief that they can influence outcomes in their lives through their choices rather than feeling subject to external forces or authorities. This internal locus of control correlates strongly with resilience, achievement motivation, and overall life satisfaction. Shifting from control to clarity doesn't mean abandoning boundaries or structure. In fact, clear communication requires consistent, thoughtful boundaries that children can understand and internalize. The key difference lies in how these boundaries are presented and maintained. Rather than arbitrary rules enforced through parental power, clarity-focused boundaries come with explanations, opportunities for discussion, and acknowledgement of children's perspectives, even when those perspectives don't change the outcomes. When parents prioritize clarity over control, they cultivate children who follow rules not from fear of punishment, but from genuine understanding of purpose, developing the internal guidance system necessary for lifelong success. Communicating for independence. Effective communication forms the cornerstone of raising independent, confident children. The way we speak to our children, our tone, word choice, timing, and content profoundly shape how they view themselves and their capabilities. When parents communicate expectations clearly and provide thoughtful reasoning behind decisions, children develop both the understanding and confidence needed to navigate their expanding worlds. This approach contrasts sharply with simply issuing commands, which leaves children dependent on external direction rather than building their internal decision-making capacities. Research in developmental psychology consistently demonstrates that children thrive when expectations are communicated in specific, age-appropriate terms. Vague instructions like, be good, or clean up, leave children guessing at what success looks like. While specific guidance such as, please speak in a quiet voice in the library, or put your blocks in the blue bin when you're finished playing, provides actionable clarity. This specificity helps children understand exactly what's expected, reducing frustration for both parent and child while building the child's confidence in their ability to meet expectations successfully. What would happen if you were dropped into an unfamiliar job without a clear understanding of your responsibilities or how your performance would be evaluated? The anxiety and uncertainty would likely undermine your confidence and effectiveness. Our children experience similar feelings when our expectations remain mysterious or constantly shifting. By clearly articulating what we expect and maintaining reasonable consistency in those expectations, we create an environment where children can develop mastery and confidence rather than confusion and insecurity. Beyond clarity of expectations, effective parent-child communication includes sharing the reasoning behind family decisions and rules. When children understand why certain behaviors matter, whether for safety, respect for others, or family values, they're more likely to internalize these principles rather than merely complying on the surface. Explanations should be tailored to the child's developmental level, using language and concepts they can grasp. For younger children, Simple cause and effect explanations suffice. We wash hands before we eat to keep germs away and stay healthy. For older children, more nuanced reasoning becomes appropriate. Getting enough sleep helps your brain consolidate what you learned today, which is why we have a consistent bedtime. The delivery of communication matters as much as its content. Children are exquisitely attuned to emotional cues, often absorbing more from our tone and body language than our words alone. Speaking at eye level, maintaining a calm voice even when frustrated, and choosing moments when both parent and child are regulated all enhance effective communication. This doesn't mean parents must be perfectly composed at all times. Indeed, modeling appropriate expression of emotions is valuable, but it does mean being intentional about creating conditions where vital communication can be received rather than deflected. Consider your communication with children as planting seeds rather than demanding immediate blooms. The explanations, reasoning, and values you share may not show immediate results, but they establish roots in your child's understanding that will eventually support independent judgment. Just as a gardener provides water, sunlight, and nutrients rather than pulling on plants to make them grow faster, parents provide clear communication and reasoning, trusting the developmental process to unfold naturally as children integrate this guidance into their expanding worldview. Fostering independence through communication involves a gradual transfer of decision-making responsibilities. This progression begins with simple choices in early childhood: what shirt to wear, what vegetable to eat with dinner, and evolves towards more significant decisions as children develop. At each stage, clear communication about the parameters of choice, potential consequences, and family values provides the framework within which children can exercise growing autonomy. This scaffolded approach builds decision-making muscles in age-appropriate ways, preparing children for the increasingly complex choices of adolescence and adulthood. Effective communication also involves listening, truly attending to children's thoughts, questions, and concerns. When parents demonstrate genuine interest in their children's perspectives, even when those perspectives differ from parental views, they communicate a powerful message about their child's value and competence. This doesn't mean children always get their way, but it does mean their thoughts merit consideration. Questions like, "What do you think about this?" or "What ideas do you have for solving this problem?" invite children into the decision-making process, building both their critical thinking skills and their confidence in their own judgment. Even when communicating limits or consequences, parents can frame messages to support independence rather than reinforce dependence. Compare "because I said so" with "in our family, we speak respectfully to each other even when we're upset." The first message teaches children that power determines outcomes. The second helps them understand the principles behind the expectation while maintaining their dignity. Similarly, consequences framed as logical outcomes rather than punitive measures help children connect their choices to results. "Since you chose to spend your allowance on candy yesterday, you don't have enough for the toy you want today," teaches cause and effect thinking more effectively than arbitrary penalties. Mistakes, both children's and parents, provide valuable opportunities for communication that fosters independence. When children make poor choices, clear communication about what went wrong, alternative approaches, and repair strategies help them develop problem-solving skills. Equally important, when parents make mistakes in their communication, perhaps speaking harshly or jumping to conclusions, acknowledging these errors models accountability and resilience. Simple statements like, "I spoke too harshly earlier," "I was frustrated, but I should have taken a breath first. Let's try this conversation again," demonstrate both humanity and the possibility of recovery from communication missteps. How might your communication change if you viewed every interaction with your child not just as addressing an immediate situation, but as an opportunity to gradually transfer the skills of good judgment to them? Fostering autonomous decision-making. Children develop self-assurance and decision-making skills gradually, through practice and guidance rather than instruction alone. Communication techniques that support this development recognize children as emerging thinkers with growing capacities for judgment and choice. When parents consistently use approaches that invite children's participation in age-appropriate decisions, they create powerful learning opportunities that build both competence and confidence. These techniques move beyond telling children what to do toward helping them discover how to think. Open-ended questions represent one of the most valuable tools for supporting autonomous decision-making. Questions like, "What do you think might happen if?" or "How could we solve this problem?" invite children to engage their reasoning abilities rather than simply waiting for parental direction. Unlike closed questions that can be answered with yes or no, open-ended inquiries require children to formulate thoughts, consider possibilities, and articulate their thinking. Even when a parent already has a solution in mind, asking children to generate ideas first communicates respect for their developing judgment while exercising critical thinking muscles they'll need throughout life. Think of communication as a bridge between your child's current capabilities and their future potential. The strongest bridges don't merely transport someone from one side to the other. They provide secure passage while allowing travelers to observe the landscape and gain perspective. Similarly, communication techniques that foster autonomy provide structure and support while offering children views of the decision-making terrain they'll eventually navigate independently. Reflective listening serves as another powerful technique for developing children's decision-making capabilities. When parents paraphrase what children have said, "So you're feeling frustrated because your friend didn't share the toys," they help children clarify their own thinking while demonstrating that their perspectives matter. This validation builds confidence in children's ability to understand and articulate their experiences. As children feel increasingly secure that their thoughts will be taken seriously, they become more willing to engage in the sometimes challenging work of making decisions and solving problems. Providing structured choices offers a practical approach to building decision-making skills incrementally. Rather than asking, "What do you want to wear?" which might overwhelm a young child with too many options, parents can ask, "Would you like to wear the red shirt or the blue one today?" This bounded choice provides autonomy while keeping decisions manageable. As children mature, the scope of choices naturally expands, but the principle remains the same, offering decision-making opportunities that stretch children's capabilities without overwhelming them. This gradual expansion of choice builds confidence through successful experiences with increasingly complex decisions. Natural consequences provide invaluable learning opportunities when handled with supportive communication. When a child forgets their lunch, a parent might ask, "What are your options now?" rather than immediately solving the problem. This approach communicates confidence in the child's ability to address challenges while providing an opportunity to think through solutions. The parent remains available to support, perhaps helping the child call the school office or discussing lunch money options, but places the child in the problem-solver role rather than the passive recipient of rescue. These experiences, though sometimes uncomfortable in the moment, build both competence and confidence in facing future challenges. The Crow Empowering Model. The empowering communication model provides a structured approach to fostering clarity, independence, and confidence in children through intentional communication strategies. This model consists of 3 interconnected components: clarity, reasoning, and open-ended questions, CROW, each contributing essential elements to effective parent-child communication. When implemented consistently, this approach transforms everyday interactions into opportunities for children to develop the understanding and decision-making skills they'll need throughout life. Clarity component. The clarity component focuses on communicating expectations and boundaries in language children can readily understand and apply. This means replacing vague directives like, "Behave yourself," with specific guidance such as, "Please use walking feet in the house," or "Speak in a voice that's appropriate for the library." Clear communication eliminates guesswork, reducing frustration for both parents and children, while creating conditions where success becomes more likely. When children understand exactly what's expected, they can direct their energy towards meeting those expectations rather than deciphering them. Clarity involves more than specific language. It also requires consistency across situations and between caregivers. When expectations shift unpredictably or differ dramatically depending on who's in charge, children struggle to internalize standards. While some flexibility remains important, maintaining reasonable consistency in core expectations helps children develop a secure understanding of family values and behavioral boundaries. This consistency extends to the alignment between verbal and nonverbal communication, ensuring that facial expressions, tone, and body language reinforce rather than contradict spoken messages. The timing and emotional context of communication significantly impact clarity. Information delivered during moments of high emotion, whether the child's or the parent's, typically registers poorly compared to communication during calmer states. Similarly, attempting to convey multiple expectations simultaneously often results in reduced comprehension compared to focusing on one or two key points. Parents can enhance clarity by choosing moments when both they and their child are regulated, maintaining eye contact at the child's level, and confirming understanding through simple questions like, "Can you tell me what we just talked about?" Reasoning component. The reasoning component involves explaining the why behind expectations, rules, and decisions. Rather than relying on authority alone, because I said so, reasoning connects behaviors to underlying principles, helping children understand the purpose behind family standards. These explanations should be developmentally appropriate, simple cause and effect statements for younger children, more nuanced reasoning for older ones, but consistently present across childhood. When parents regularly share their reasoning, children develop a deeper understanding of values and principles they can eventually apply independently. Sharing reasoning transforms rules from arbitrary restrictions to meaningful guidance connected to important principles. For example, explaining, "We speak kindly to each other because words can hurt feelings, and in our family, we care about each other's feelings," connects a behavioral expectation to both its impact and an underlying value. This connection helps children understand not just what they should do, but why it matters, creating internal motivation rather than mere external compliance. Over time, children internalize these principles and begin applying them in novel situations, even when parents aren't present to provide direction. The reasoning component extends beyond explaining rules to include sharing the thought processes behind decisions. When appropriate, allowing children to observe parental decision-making, perhaps talking through considerations when planning a family outing, or discussing options for solving a household problem, provides valuable modeling of thoughtful judgment. These thinking aloud moments demonstrate that decisions involve weighing options, considering consequences, and applying values rather than simply following impulses. Such transparency demystifies decision-making, making it accessible rather than magical or arbitrary. Open-ended questions component. The open-ended questions component invites children's active participation in thinking and decision-making. Questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no encourage children to articulate their thoughts, consider options, and develop their reasoning abilities. Examples include, "What do you think might happen if?" "How could we solve this problem?" Or, "What's another way we could look at the situation?" These questions position children as thinkers rather than merely followers of direction, building both their cognitive abilities and their confidence in their own judgment. Open-ended questions serve multiple functions within the communication model. They help parents gauge children's understanding, reveal misconceptions that might otherwise go unaddressed, and provide insight into children's developing values and priorities. They also create natural opportunities for parents to affirm children's thinking processes, even when the content of that thinking might need refinement. Comments like, "You really thought carefully about that," or, "I appreciate how you considered everyone's feelings in your answer," reinforce the value of thoughtful consideration independent of arriving at a particular conclusion. The art of asking effective open-ended questions involves genuine curiosity about children's perspectives rather than fishing for predetermined right answers. When parents ask with authentic interest, children sense the difference and engage more fully in the thinking process. This authenticity also means accepting responses that may differ from parental viewpoints. Using these moments as opportunities for respectful discussion rather than immediate correction. The goal isn't perfect alignment with adult thinking, but the development of children's capacity for independent thought within the framework of family values. Integration of components. The power of the empowering communication model emerges from the integration of all three components rather than implementing them in isolation. Clarity without reasoning creates rule followers who lack understanding. Reasoning without clarity leaves children confused about expectations. And questions without the foundation of clear, reasoned communication may overwhelm rather than empower. When woven together, however, these components create a communication environment that simultaneously provides structure and builds autonomy. This integration often unfolds naturally in everyday interactions. A parent might clearly state an expectation. It's time to turn off the video game. Provide reasoning that connects to values or outcomes. We agreed on 1 hour of screen time so you'd have time for other activities and rest. And then engage the child through questions. What activity would you like to do next? Or, what might help you remember our screen time limits tomorrow? This sequence provides direction while inviting the child's participation in the transition and future planning, balancing guidance with autonomy. The model adapts across developmental stages, with the balance between components shifting as children mature. With younger children, parents typically provide more clarity and more straightforward reasoning while asking less complex questions. As children develop, parents can offer more sophisticated reasoning and increasingly challenging questions while maintaining clear expectations. This evolution allows the model to remain relevant throughout childhood and adolescence, providing appropriate support at each developmental stage while consistently building towards greater autonomy. By integrating clear communication, transparent reasoning, and thought-provoking questions, parents create an environment where children develop both an understanding of expectations and confidence in their ability to meet them, transforming everyday interactions into opportunities that simultaneously provide guidance and build independence. The Clarity Communication Compass, empowering your child's voice. When we shift from control to clarity, we fundamentally transform our relationship with our children. The strategies we've explored throughout this chapter aren't just communication techniques. They're investments in your child's future confidence, decision-making abilities, and emotional intelligence. By prioritizing clear communication over strict control, you create space for your child to develop their authentic voice while still providing the guidance they need. The journey toward clarity-focused parenting doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to sometimes step back and let our children learn through experience. The rewards, however, are immeasurable. Children who understand the why behind expectations grow into teenagers and adults who can thoughtfully evaluate choices rather than simply following or rebelling against rules. The CLEAR method, communication that builds independence. The following step-by-step process will help you implement clarity-based communication in your daily family life. 1. Create the foundation. 1 to 2 weeks. Establish clear expectations for how family members communicate with one another. Decide together that everyone deserves uninterrupted speaking time during discussions, and that questions are welcomed, not discouraged. This foundation sets the stage for all future communication. 2. Listen actively and validate. Ongoing practice. When your child speaks, give them your full attention. Maintain eye contact, put away distractions, and reflect back what you hear them saying. This validation shows that their thoughts matter and builds their confidence in expressing themselves. 3. Explain the reasoning. Practice during rule-setting moments. Instead of, "because I said so," articulate the values, safety concerns, or principles behind your decisions. For example, "We have screen time limit because I want to make sure you have time for other activities that help your brain grow in different ways." 4. Apply the SIS approach. Use when teaching complex concepts. Specify what you want them to understand, illustrate with relevant examples, and summarize key points. This 3-step teaching method helps children grasp and retain critical information. 5. Rehearse through role play, 15 to 20 minutes weekly. Create safe scenarios where children can practice expressing thoughts and feelings, offer gentle feedback, and celebrate their efforts. This rehearsal builds confidence for real-world communication challenges. The CLEAR method isn't just about today. It's about equipping your child with communication skills they'll rely on throughout their lives. By implementing these steps consistently, you'll notice your child becoming more articulate about their needs, more thoughtful about their choices, and more confident in their interactions with others. Remember that this process works best when adapted to your child's developmental stage. A preschooler will need more concrete examples and simpler explanations, while a preteen can handle more nuanced discussions about values and reasoning. As you move forward with clarity-focused communication, trust that each conversation, each explanation, and each moment of active listening contributes to your child's growing sense of autonomy. The goal isn't perfect communication, but rather a family culture where thoughts and feelings can be expressed openly, questions are encouraged, and understanding is prioritized over blind obedience. When we communicate with clarity, we don't just raise children who follow directions. We raise thoughtful individuals who understand their world and their place in it. This foundation of clear communication will serve them well beyond childhood, helping them navigate relationships, make decisions, and approach life's challenges with confidence and clarity of their own. The parents pause. Before we move on to the next stage of this journey, from communication to proactive strategy, take a moment to breathe. You've just explored how clarity, not control, transforms the parent-child relationship. This shift is no small thing. It asks you to trade certainty for connection, to exchange quick fixes for lasting trust. If you reached this point in the audiobook, you've already chosen presence over perfection, and that deserves quiet acknowledgement. Parenting rarely gives us time to reflect on how far we've come. Between meals, school runs, and late-night worries, we forget that change often happens in the pauses, in the moment after we decide to listen rather than lecture, or when we apologize instead of defend. These pauses are where growth takes root. They're where our children learn what respect feels like, and where we learn that calm communication is not weakness, but strength in its highest form. You've likely felt glimmers of that strength already. A bedtime that ends with connection instead of frustration, a disagreement that turns into understanding, or a child who starts to express feelings instead of hiding them. These are signs that the seeds you've planted are beginning to grow. Other parents are still searching for those moments of peace, still sifting through noise and guilt, wondering if there's a different way to raise emotionally secure children. If this audiobook has offered you clarity or comfort, I'd be deeply grateful if you shared that through an honest review. Your reflection might be the voice that reaches another parent in the middle of a long night, offering reassurance that calm, confident parenting is possible. It just takes a minute, but your words could ripple outward, helping another family find their own moment of peace. P.S. When we speak honestly about our parenting journeys, we give each other courage. Your story, however small it may be, could be the encouragement another parent needs to take their own first step toward clarity. Chapter 3. Proactive Parenting. Preventing Stress Before It Starts. Why today's parents need strategy, not just patience. Parenting has never been easy, but in our hyper-connected world, children face unprecedented pressures and distractions. These new challenges require more than simply reacting to problems as they arise. The difference between a household constantly putting out fires and one that thrives often comes down to a simple distinction. Are you parenting proactively or reactively? When we find ourselves constantly correcting behaviors, addressing meltdowns, or navigating one crisis after another, we're stuck in reactive mode. This exhausting cycle leaves little room for the connection and guidance our children truly need. Yet many of us weren't taught another way. We parent as we were parented, or we swing wildly in the opposite direction, determined not to repeat the patterns that hurt us. Either approach often leaves us feeling uncertain or our children confused. Proactive parenting creates an environment where children learn to navigate stress before it overwhelms them. Rather than waiting for problems to emerge, proactive parents establish clear expectations, open communication channels, and consistent routines that provide children with a sense of security. This approach doesn't mean controlling every aspect of your child's life or preventing them from experiencing difficulty. Instead, it means equipping them with the tools, understanding, and emotional foundation to face challenges with resilience. The research is remarkably consistent. Children who grow up with clear boundaries, consistent engagement, and open communication develop stronger emotional regulation skills and greater confidence. These children aren't sheltered from stress. They're prepared for it. They understand what's expected of them and why those expectations matter. Most importantly, they know they have a safe place to turn when life feels overwhelming. This security becomes the foundation from which they can explore, take risks, and develop independence. Throughout this chapter, we'll explore practical approaches to shifting from reactive to proactive parenting. You'll discover how to establish meaningful communication routines that help your child articulate their feelings before they escalate into behavioral issues. We'll examine ways to create shared family values that guide decision-making and provide a sense of purpose and belonging. And you'll learn techniques for creating consistent, focused interactions that strengthen your connection and build your child's emotional intelligence. This isn't about adding more to your already full plate. Many parents are surprised to discover that proactive approaches actually save time and energy in the long run. The investment you make in establishing clear communication and connection now pays dividends as your child develops greater self-regulation and problem-solving abilities. Rather than constantly addressing the same behavioral issues, you'll find yourself having deeper conversations and enjoying more meaningful time together. When children need more than just answers. Sarah Morgan watched her 10-year-old son hunched over his homework at the kitchen table. His shoulders tensed with each scribble of the pencil, the eraser wearing thin from constant use. Outside, autumn leaves cascaded past the window, catching the late afternoon light before settling on the lawn. The smell of beef stew simmered on the stove, filling the house with warmth. But the comfort of the scene did not ease her mind. "I'm stupid," James muttered, snapping his pencil lead against the math worksheet. The words struck her like a physical blow. She set down the wooden spoon and moved toward him, careful not to rush. She had read something about this in Dr. Weiss's book last night, about the importance of creating space for conversations rather than jumping to fix problems. Her instinct screamed to contradict him, to shower him with praise. Instead, she pulled out the chair beside him and sat. "Math feeling tough today?" she asked, studying his face. The freckles across his nose seemed to stand out more when he frowned. James stared at the paper, eyes welling. "Everyone else gets it. Mrs. Peterson explained it 3 times and I still don't understand. Then Dylan said only babies don't know how to do fractions." His voice broke on the last word. He balled his fists, pressing them against his eyes. Sarah thought about the reactive ways she might have handled this before. A quick hug, an assurance that he wasn't stupid, maybe even taking over the problem to show him how it's done. The approach had never worked. Dr. Weiss had emphasized proactive engagement, creating regular times to connect before crises happened. She'd started their evening walks last month, where James had begun telling her about school without prompting. Those 15 minutes each day had built something between them that felt new. "You know," she said, "I struggled with math too. Still do sometimes when I'm helping with your homework." She smiled, and he glanced up, skepticism clear in his eyes. "It doesn't make either of us stupid. It makes us human." She paused, letting the words sink in. The refrigerator hummed in the background. Outside, a car door slammed. "What if we set aside the homework for 20 minutes? We could have some hot chocolate and look at it together with fresh eyes. James considered this, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Can we have marshmallows in it?" "Absolutely." She stood, feeling the cool tile against her bare feet. As she reached for the cocoa powder on the top shelf, she thought about tomorrow. Perhaps she would pick James up from school instead of letting him take the bus. They could stop at the park, giving him some space to talk about his day before homework pressures mounted. Building in that buffer might help him face challenges with more resilience. The milk heated on the stove, forming a thin skin on top that she whisked away. Sarah poured the steaming liquid over the chocolate powder, the rich aroma rising between them. James watched her, his homework temporarily forgotten. "Mom," he said suddenly, "Dylan's dad is getting remarried, and Dylan says he hates the lady. He says his dad doesn't listen when he tells him that." Sarah handed him the mug, careful not to spill. The marshmallows bobbed on the surface like tiny lifeboats. She sensed an opening, not to discuss James's math troubles, but something deeper about feeling heard. "That must be hard for Dylan. Do you think he's told his dad how he really feels?" "He says he's tried, but his dad just says he'll like her eventually." James blew on his hot chocolate, creating ripples across the surface. "If you married someone, would you make me like them too?" The question caught her off guard. In the 18 months since the divorce, she'd carefully avoided dating, focused instead on creating stability. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the kitchen floor. A dog barked somewhere down the block. She thought about Dr. Weiss's emphasis on honest communication about expectations and values. "I would never make you like someone," she said finally. "But I would want you to give them a chance, and I would make sure they understood how important it is that they respect our relationship." She paused. "Your feelings matter to me, James. Always." He nodded, considering this as he sipped his drink. The chocolate left a thin mustache above his lip that he wiped away with his sleeve. Sarah felt something shift between them, something important taking root. Would these small moments of intentional connection truly prepare him for the bigger challenges waiting in his future? The proactive approach to modern parenting. In today's fast-paced world, children face stressors that previous generations never encountered. From academic pressures starting at increasingly younger ages to the omnipresence of social media and technology, the landscape of childhood has transformed dramatically. When these stressors arise, parents typically respond in one of two ways: reactively or proactively. Reactive parenting addresses behaviors and emotions after they've already manifested, often when a child is already in distress. Proactive parenting, by contrast, anticipates challenges and builds foundational skills before problems occur. Think of reactive parenting as treating symptoms, while proactive parenting works like preventative medicine. When a child struggles with homework frustration, a reactive approach might involve consoling them in the moment or implementing consequences for an emotional outburst. A proactive parent, however, would have already established regular check-ins about homework, created a calm study environment, and taught emotional regulation techniques during neutral moments. The reactive parent is constantly putting out fires. The proactive parent has installed smoke detectors and taught fire safety. Research consistently demonstrates that proactive parenting leads to better outcomes for children's emotional development and stress management. A longitudinal study published in the Journal of Family Psychology found that children whose parents used proactive discipline strategies showed fewer behavior problems and better self-regulation skills over time compared to those whose parents primarily used reactive strategies. These benefits aren't limited to behavior. They extend to mental health, academic achievement, and social competence. Children raised with proactive approaches develop a stronger internal locus of control, believing they can influence outcomes through their choices rather than feeling at the mercy of external forces. The beauty of proactive parenting lies in its emphasis on connection rather than correction. By consistently investing in your relationship with your child during calm moments, You build a reservoir of trust and understanding that becomes invaluable during challenges. This approach doesn't mean preventing your child from experiencing any stress. That would be impossible and undesirable for healthy development. Instead, it equips them with the tools, confidence, and security to navigate difficulties effectively. Regular family meetings, established routines, and ongoing conversations about emotions and values create a framework that supports children through life's inevitable challenges. Proactive parenting doesn't require perfection or extraordinary effort. Simple, consistent practices yield significant results. Setting aside 10 minutes of undivided attention daily, preparing children for transitions, discussing expectations before entering new situations, and modeling healthy stress management in your own life all contribute to a proactive approach. These small investments of time and attention pay dividends in reduced family tension and stronger parent-child bonds. When children know what to expect and feel equipped to handle these challenges, their anxiety naturally decreases. Modern stressors require modern parenting solutions. Digital challenges represent a perfect example for where proactive parenting shines. Rather than waiting until problems with screen time arise, proactive parents establish media guidelines early, having ongoing conversations about digital citizenship, and model healthy technology use themselves. This approach extends beyond technology to all aspects of modern childhood, from academic pressures to social dynamics to world events that might cause anxiety. By anticipating these challenges and preparing children with age-appropriate information and coping strategies, parents create a buffer against stress. The shift from reactive to proactive parenting doesn't happen overnight. It requires intentionality and a willingness to invest time up front to prevent problems later. This approach may feel counterintuitive in a culture that often prioritizes immediate results and quick fixes. Yet, the evidence is clear. Proactive parenting creates resilient children who navigate stress more successfully. By establishing clear expectations, teaching skills during calm moments, and maintaining consistent communication, parents provide the secure foundation children need to thrive in an increasingly complex world. Proactive parenting is not about controlling outcomes, but about equipping children with the tools they need to navigate life's inevitable challenges with confidence and resilience. Building bridges of understanding. Communication forms the cornerstone of effective parenting. Yet, in the rush of daily life, meaningful exchanges often get reduced to logistics and instructions. Establishing clear communication with your child requires more than simply talking at them. It demands creating space for authentic dialogue where both parties feel heard and valued. Research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child shows that back-and-forth conversations between parents and children, what they call serve and return interactions, literally build neural connections that support communication and cognitive development. What does that look like in practice? Start by creating regular opportunities for uninterrupted conversation. This might mean device-free dinners, bedtime check-ins, or special outings with individual children. During these times, practice active listening, making eye contact, avoiding interruptions, and reflecting back what you hear. Ask open-ended questions that cannot be answered with simple yes or no responses. What was the most interesting part of your day? Instead of, did you have a good day? Remember that children often process information differently from adults. They may need more time to formulate their thoughts, or might communicate through play rather than direct conversation. Communication within families can be viewed as a garden that requires regular tending. Without consistent care, weeds of misunderstanding and disconnect quickly overtake the space. Each positive interaction, whether a meaningful conversation or a moment of empathy during distress, or simply being fully present while your child speaks, plants a seed of connection. These seeds grow into strong channels of communication that will sustain your relationship through challenges and conflicts. Just as gardeners don't flourish overnight, communication patterns develop over time through consistent cultivation. Values represent another crucial dimension of family communication. Children don't learn values through lectures, but through lived experience and ongoing dialogue. Take time to identify the core values that matter most to your family. Perhaps honesty, compassion, perseverance, or creativity. Then look for natural opportunities to highlight these values in action. When you notice your child demonstrating patience with a younger sibling, acknowledge the value they're expressing. I noticed how patient you were when helping your brother with his puzzle. That kind of patience shows real kindness. Shared vocabulary around emotions and values creates powerful shortcuts to understanding. Develop simple, age-appropriate language for discussing feelings and experiences. For younger children, this might include basic emotion words and visual cues like feeling charts. As children develop, introduce more nuanced emotional vocabulary, the difference between disappointment and frustration, or between nervousness and excitement. Similarly, create shared language around family values. Perhaps resilience becomes bounce-back power, or integrity becomes doing the right thing even when no one is watching. This shared vocabulary provides tools for navigating difficult conversations. Nonverbal communication often speaks louder than words, especially with children who are acutely attuned to incongruence between what parents say and how they act. Pay attention to the messages your body language, tone, and facial expressions convey. A parent who preaches patience while sighing heavily and checking their watch sends a mixed message. Children notice these inconsistencies and trust actions over words. Practice aligning your nonverbal cues with your verbal messages. And when you notice misalignment, acknowledge it. I'm saying I'm listening, but my body language shows I'm distracted. Let me put this down and really focus on you. Cultural context profoundly influences communication patterns. Some families value direct expression, while others emphasize harmony and indirect communication. Some cultures prioritize verbal exchange, while others place greater emphasis on observational learning and nonverbal cues. There's no single right way to communicate. What matters is finding patterns that honor your family's cultural values while ensuring children feel secure, understood, and equipped to navigate their world. Consider how your own upbringing shaped your communication style, and consciously choose which patterns to continue and which to modify. Creating space for difficult conversations represents one of the most valuable gifts parents can offer children. When parents demonstrate openness to discussing challenging topics, from body boundaries to world events to family conflicts, they teach children that no subject is too taboo or too frightening to address together. This openness begins in early childhood with age-appropriate conversations and develops as children mature. The parent who responds to a preschooler's question about death with thoughtful simplicity paves the way for that same child, as a teenager, to approach them with questions about relationships or substance use. Effective communication evolves as children develop. The direct guidance appropriate for a toddler gives way to collaborative problem-solving for school-aged children and consultative support for teenagers. Throughout these stages, maintaining connection remains paramount. During transitions and challenges, such as starting school, navigating puberty, and experiencing friendship difficulties, intentionally increase communication opportunities. These pivotal moments offer natural openings for meaningful dialogue about values, emotions, and life skills. Regular family meetings provide a structured opportunity to practice clear communication and reinforce shared values. Even young children can participate in simple versions of these gatherings. Use this time to celebrate successes, address challenges, plan special activities, or discuss family rules. The format can be formal or casual, weekly or monthly, but the consistent practice of coming together specifically to communicate builds powerful habits. End meetings with positive affirmations or expressions of gratitude to reinforce the connection. How might your family transform if you approached communication not as something that happens automatically, but as a skill that requires intentional development and regular practice? Cultivating security through consistent engagement. Children thrive on predictability. Their sense of security blossoms when they can count on consistent patterns of interaction with their parents. These aren't just nice-to-have moments. They're essential building blocks for emotional resilience. When children experience regular, focused attention from caregivers, their stress regulation systems develop optimally. Research from the field of interpersonal neurobiology shows that these consistent positive interactions quite literally shape brain development, creating neural pathways that support emotional regulation and stress management. Consistency doesn't require grand gestures or elaborate plans. Simple rituals often carry the most meaning. The bedtime story that never gets skipped, the Saturday morning pancake tradition, or the daily walk after dinner. These touch points provide children with anchors throughout their day and week, creating islands of connections they can count on even when other aspects of life feel chaotic. During these moments, children receive the implicit message that they matter, that their presence is valued, and that their needs are worthy of attention, powerful antidotes to the stress of modern childhood. Think of your child's sense of security as similar to constructing a building. Each positive, consistent interaction lays another brick in their foundation of trust. A sturdy foundation doesn't come from occasional massive construction projects, but from the daily laying of bricks, small, consistent efforts that accumulate over time. A parent who reliably responds to their child's bids for connection, looking up from their phone when the child speaks, acknowledging emotions even during inconvenient moments, and following through on promises creates a foundation that can withstand significant stress and challenge. Implementing consistent, focused interactions requires intentional planning in today's busy world. Many parents find success by scheduling connection points just as they would any other necessary appointment. This might mean setting an alarm 5 minutes earlier to ensure unhurried morning greetings, blocking off after-school time for unstructured play before homework begins, or establishing a weekly one-on-one outing with each child. The specific activities matter less than the reliable presence and genuine engagement they provide. Children sense the difference between distracted half-attention and true presence, and they flourish when receiving the latter. The AIC framework: anticipation, engagement, consistency. The Proactive Parenting Strategy Framework offers a systematic approach to preventing stress and building resilience in children through 3 key elements: anticipation, engagement, and consistency, AIC. Together, these components create an environment where children develop the security and skills needed to navigate challenges effectively. Anticipation: looking ahead to navigate challenges. Anticipation involves understanding developmental stages and their associated challenges, allowing parents to prepare both themselves and their children for what lies ahead. This component focuses on identifying potential stressors before they emerge and developing strategies to address them proactively. Effective anticipation begins with knowledge of child development. When parents understand typical developmental milestones and challenges, they can distinguish between normal developmental struggles and more serious concerns. For example, recognizing that tantrums are developmentally appropriate for toddlers helps parents respond with patience rather than alarm, while understanding the increasing importance of peer relationships in middle childhood allows parents to proactively support social skill development. The anticipation element includes identifying transition points that typically create stress for children. These might be daily transitions, home to school, activity to bedtime, seasonal transitions, beginning of school year, holiday seasons, or major life transitions, new sibling, moving homes, parental separation. By recognizing these stress points in advance, parents can implement strategies to ease transitions, providing additional connection time, creating visual schedules, or discussing upcoming changes in age-appropriate ways. Practical application of the anticipation component involves creating stress prevention plans for known challenges. If a child struggles with separation anxiety at school drop-off, an anticipatory approach might include establishing a consistent goodbye ritual, arranging a play date with a classmate before school starts, reading stories about school separation, and collaborating with teachers on transition strategies. This proactive planning transforms potentially overwhelming situations into manageable challenges. Engagement: connecting with your child's inner world. The engagement component focuses on meaningful interaction that builds emotional understanding and strengthens the parent-child relationship. This goes beyond physical presence to encompass emotional attunement and genuine curiosity about the child's experience. Quality engagement requires parents to temporarily set aside their own perspective to enter their child's world. This might mean getting down on the floor to play with a toddler, listening without judgment to a teenager's music, or showing interest in a hobby that doesn't personally appeal to you. These moments of genuine engagement communicate respect for the child's unique interests and experiences, building trust and opening channels to deeper communication. Emotional coaching represents a crucial aspect of engagement. This involves helping children identify, express, and manage emotions through supportive conversation and modeling. When parents validate feelings without necessarily endorsing behaviors, "I understand you're frustrated about waiting your turn," and "we still need to speak respectfully," children learn that emotions are normal and manageable rather than overwhelming or dangerous. Regular emotional coaching during calm times equips children to navigate emotional challenges more effectively when they arise. Engagement also includes creating specific routines dedicated to connection. This might include regular check-ins using prompts like, "What made you smile today?" or "Did anything puzzle you today?" family dinner discussions, or special parent-child activities. These dedicated connection times provide opportunities to discuss values, practice communication skills, and strengthen bonds, all of which contribute to a child's ability to manage stress effectively. Consistency. Creating predictable patterns of security. The consistency element emphasizes the importance of reliable routines, boundaries, and parental responses in creating an environment where children feel secure enough to develop resilience. Predictable daily routines serve as powerful stress reducers for children. When children can anticipate the flow of their day, from morning routines to meal times to bedtime rituals, their nervous systems remain calmer. Their cognitive resources aren't consumed by wondering what happens next, freeing mental energy for learning, creativity, and problem solving. This doesn't mean schedules must be rigid. Rather, it suggests having consistent frameworks that can flex when needed while maintaining key anchors throughout the day. Consistency extends to boundaries and expectations as well. When rules remain relatively stable and consequences are predictable, children develop better self-regulation. They learn to trust their environment and internalize expectations rather than constantly testing limits to discover where they stand. Consistent boundaries don't mean harsh or punitive approaches. Instead, they involve clear, developmentally appropriate expectations coupled with supportive guidance to meet those expectations. Perhaps most importantly, consistency applies to parental emotional availability and responses. Children develop security when they can predict how parents will respond to their needs, emotions, and behaviors. This doesn't mean parents must be perfect. In fact, ruptures in the relationship followed by repair provide valuable learning opportunities. What matters is an overall pattern of reliable responsiveness where children trust that their parents will acknowledge their feelings, maintain appropriate boundaries, and remain emotionally available through challenges. The three elements of the AIC framework work synergistically. Anticipation identifies potential challenges. Engagement builds the relationship foundation needed to navigate those challenges. And consistency creates the secure environment where children can develop resilience. For example, a parent might anticipate their child's anxiety about an upcoming performance, anticipation, create special time to discuss feelings and practice coping strategies, engagement, and maintain calm bedtime routines during the stressful period, consistency. Together, these approaches significantly enhance a child's capacity to manage stress. By integrating proactive anticipation of challenges, meaningful engagement with your child's experiences, and consistency in routines and responses, you create an environment where children develop both the security to explore their world and the skills to navigate its inevitable stresses. This comprehensive approach transforms reactive crisis management into intentional relationship building that equips children for long-term emotional well-being. The Stress-Proof Family Blueprint. Proactive parenting isn't just a philosophy. It's a daily commitment to creating the conditions where children can flourish despite inevitable pressures of modern life. By anticipating needs rather than merely responding to behaviors, we build children's capacity to navigate challenges with confidence and resilience. When we establish clear communication channels and shared values, we create an emotional foundation that helps children interpret their experiences through a lens of security rather than anxiety. Those consistent, focused interactions we've explored don't just fill time, they fill our children's emotional reserves, preparing them to face stressors with a full cup rather than an empty one. The most powerful gift we can offer our children isn't protection from all stress, but rather the tools to manage it effectively. This proactive approach transforms how children experience and process the world around them. The secure method: stress prevention through connection. The secure method provides a practical framework for implementing proactive parenting strategies that prevent stress before it takes root. Schedule dedicated connection time, 15 to 20 minutes daily. Reserve uninterrupted time for one-on-one interaction with your child. Mark it on your calendar like any important appointment. During this time, put away devices and give your child your complete attention. Explore feelings through open dialogue. 10 minutes per session. Ask open-ended questions like, "What made you smile today?" Or, "Was there anything that felt challenging?" Listen without immediately jumping to solutions. Simply reflect back what you hear. "It sounds like you felt disappointed when that happened." Create family values together. 60 to 90 minutes initially, revisit quarterly. Hold a family meeting to identify 5 to 7 core values that matter to everyone. Make a visual representation, perhaps a colorful poster or digital collage displaying these values. Place it somewhere visible as a daily reminder of what guides your family. Understand through active listening. Ongoing practice. When your child speaks, resist the urge to interrupt or immediately problem solve. Instead, make eye contact, nod, and use phrases like, "I hear you," or "Tell me more about that." This validation helps children feel seen and builds their emotional vocabulary. Respond with collaborative problem solving. 15 to 30 minutes when issues arise. When challenges occur, sit down together and break the problem into manageable parts. Ask, "What solutions can we think of?" and write down all ideas without judgment. Help your child evaluate options and choose a path forward, building critical thinking skills. Equip with personalized stress management tools. Build over 2 to 4 weeks. Create a physical, calm kit containing items that help your child self-regulate, perhaps a stress ball, journal, favorite book, or headphones. Include written reminders of breathing techniques or positive affirmations tailored to your child's preferences. The beauty of this method lies in its flexibility. You can adapt these steps to fit your family's unique rhythm and needs. The consistent practice, not perfection, builds your child's capacity to manage stress effectively over time. Remember that implementing this approach is itself a journey. There will be days when reactive patterns resurface, and that's perfectly normal. What matters is the overall trajectory toward more intentional, proactive parenting. By committing to these practices, you're not only addressing immediate stressors, but building lasting resilience that will serve your child throughout life. The security and emotional intelligence cultivated through proactive parenting become internal resources your child carries into every new challenge. As we move forward, consider how these proactive strategies can be applied to specific developmental stages and challenges. The investment you make now in establishing these patterns will continue to yield returns as your child grows, providing them with an emotional foundation that supports healthy development and meaningful connections throughout life. Chapter 4: Stability and Structure. Building a Resilient Environment. When chaos meets consistency, the hidden power in your daily rituals. When children step into a world they can predict, they gain courage to explore it. The beauty of consistency isn't just in maintaining order. It's in creating a foundation where young minds can flourish without the constant anxiety of not knowing what comes next. As parents, our most powerful tool isn't elaborate gifts or educational toys, but rather a simple promise that certain things remain steadfast in an otherwise changing world. The quest to raise emotionally intelligent, confident children often leads us through a maze of contradictory advice and fleeting parenting trends. Yet throughout our journey in this audiobook, we've discovered that clarity in communication, expectations, and daily structure remains the cornerstone of effective parenting. This chapter builds upon the emotional intelligence foundations we've explored, the communication techniques we've practiced, and the confidence-building strategies we've implemented. Now we turn to what might be the most crucial element binding these approaches together: consistency and structure. Research consistently demonstrates that children thrive in environments where they can anticipate patterns and understand boundaries. When a child knows that bedtime follows bath time, or that hitting results in a specific consequence every time, they develop an internal sense of order that translates to security. This security isn't merely about comfort. It's about developing the neural pathways that allow children to focus on higher-order thinking instead of constantly scanning their environment for potential threats or changes. The predictability you provide today shapes how your child will handle uncertainty tomorrow. The challenge for modern parents lies in maintaining this consistency amid busy schedules, competing priorities, and the inevitable exhaustion that comes with raising children. Many of us find ourselves wavering, enforcing a rule firmly one day, then letting it slide the next when we lack the energy to address it. This inconsistency, however understandable, sends mixed signals that heighten anxiety and confusion in children. They begin to question not just the rules themselves, but also their ability to navigate their world successfully. Your consistency isn't just about discipline. It's about helping your child develop an accurate map of how their world works. In the sections ahead, we'll examine how daily routines become the invisible architecture supporting your child's sense of security. We'll look at why consequences must be both fair and predictable to foster trust rather than resentment. And perhaps most importantly, we'll explore practical strategies to maintain consistency even during challenging times when it would be easier to abandon structure altogether. The framework we build together isn't rigid, it's resilient, allowing for the natural flexibilities of family life while preserving the core stability children need. Throughout our exploration of emotional intelligence, healthy communication, and confidence building in previous chapters, we've touched on how these elements contribute to raising children who face the world with clarity and purpose. This chapter completes the picture by showing how a consistent structure creates the environment where these qualities can take root and flourish. When children trust their environment, they're free to direct their energy toward growth rather than survival, toward curiosity rather than anxiety. As we approach the conclusion of our journey together, this chapter serves as both a capstone and a foundation. The consistency you establish today creates the stable ground from which your child will eventually launch into independence. By understanding how predictable patterns and fair boundaries foster trust, you'll be equipped to create a home environment that doesn't just manage behavior, but nurtures the development of a resilient, confident human being. Let's discover how the quiet power of consistency might be the most profound gift you can offer your child in an increasingly unpredictable world. When the days followed their own rhythm, Sarah Morgan stood at the kitchen window, watching her son Thomas throw rocks into the small pond behind their house. The late afternoon sun fell across the water in slices, broken by the clouds that moved above like slow ships. She had let him go outside despite the fact that he had not finished his homework, a break from the usual routine that now gnawed at her thoughts. He needs structure, Michael had said before he left. Not a warning, not an accusation, just a fact dropped into the silence between them, like one of Thomas's rocks into the pond. He had been right, of course. In the 3 months since Michael moved out, the routines they had built for Thomas had crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. Bedtime stretched later, meals became irregular, and consequences for bad behavior shifted with her moods. She watched Thomas pick up another rock, testing its weight in his small palm. Last week, his teacher had called about his outburst in class. The third this month. Children thrive on predictability, Mrs. Chen had explained, her voice gentle but firm through the phone. The uncertainty at home is showing up in his behavior here. Sarah had nodded into the receiver. Though no one could see her, she knew this. She had read the books and attended the parenting workshops. Structure, consistency, reliability. These were the foundations children needed. Yet knowing and doing lived in different countries. The kitchen counter behind her held the remnants of breakfast, lunch, and possibly yesterday's dinner. Time had become elastic in their house, stretching and contracting without warning. She turned from the window and began to clear the dishes, organizing them into neat stacks. Outside, Thomas had abandoned his rock throwing and now sat cross-legged by the water's edge, watching something, a frog, perhaps, or his own reflection. She thought of his nightmares, how they had increased since the separation, how he had asked the same questions every night before bed. When is bedtime now? Will you be here when I wake up? What happens if I don't finish my homework? Questions that sought assurance that tomorrow would follow the patterns of today, that the world remained solid beneath his feet. Sarah dried her hands on a kitchen towel, her eyes never leaving Thomas's small figure by the pond. She remembered her own childhood, the comfort she had found in knowing exactly what came next. Homework, then play, then dinner at 6, bath at 7, bed by 8. Her father's voice, firm but never unkind. This is what we agreed to. The fairness of it had settled in her bones. The understanding that actions had predictable consequences, good or bad. She had felt safe in that knowledge. When had she decided that Thomas didn't need the same? The calendar on the refrigerator caught her attention. Empty squares stared back at her. Before, they had been filled up with Michael's precise handwriting, soccer practices, dental appointments, and playdates, all carefully noted. She picked up a pen from the counter and began to write. Monday, school, 8:30 to 3. Homework, 4 to 5. Dinner, 6. Bath, 7. Bed, 8. She continued through the week, each day a mirror of the one before it, a structure to build upon. Not a prison, she thought, but a scaffold, something that would hold them both up while they rebuilt their lives. Thomas appeared at the back door, his shoes muddy, his face flushed with the cold. "Mom," he said, "can I have a snack?" She checked the clock on the wall, 4:15, not their usual snack time, which had once been 3:30. But she was only now creating new boundaries, drawing new lines. "Yes," she said, "and then it's homework time. Every day from now on, that's our plan. Snack, then homework, then play. What do you think?" He considered her words, searching her face for something, weakness perhaps, or uncertainty. He would not find it today. Today, she understood what she had always known, that in giving him this predictable frame for his days, she was giving him freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing exactly where the edges are, where it's safe to run, and where to stop. What would it take for her to maintain the firm boundaries her son needed when her own world had become so uncertain? And how would she balance the comfort of routine with the flexibility that life would inevitably demand? The foundations of security in daily life. Consistency forms the bedrock upon which children build their understanding of the world. When parents maintain regular routines and clear disciplinary boundaries, children develop an internal sense of security that carries them through life's challenges. Research consistently shows that predictable environments help children's developing brains create neural pathways that support emotional regulation and cognitive development. These pathways become stronger each time expectations are met in the same way, reinforcing a child's ability to predict outcomes and respond appropriately. Think of consistency as the invisible scaffolding supporting a child's growth. Just as construction workers rely on stable frameworks to build upward safety, children use consistent structures in their lives to build confidence, self-discipline, and emotional intelligence. Without the scaffolding, development becomes precarious, leaving children uncertain about boundaries and expectations, much like workers would hesitate on an unstable platform. The impact of inconsistency can be profound and far-reaching. Children living with unpredictable routines or disciplinary approaches often exhibit higher levels of anxiety, difficulty with emotional regulation, and challenges in developing healthy relationships. This happens because they're constantly expending mental energy trying to understand and adapt to changing expectations rather than focusing on growth and exploration. Their sense of security becomes compromised when they cannot reliably predict how their actions will be received or what each day will bring. Routine consistency doesn't mean rigid scheduling that leaves no room for spontaneity or adjustment. Rather, it means creating dependable patterns that children can recognize and anticipate. Morning routines that follow similar steps, bedtime rituals that signal the day's end, regular meetings that provide both nutritional and emotional nourishment. These consistent elements create a rhythm to daily life that children can internalize. This rhythm becomes particularly important during times of transition or stress, serving as an anchor when other aspects of life feel chaotic. Consistency in routines and discipline creates the secure foundation children need to develop confidence, emotional regulation, and trust in both themselves and their caregivers. The psychology of predictability. Children thrive on knowing what comes next. Their developing brains are constantly working to make sense of their environment, looking for patterns that help them predict and prepare for upcoming events. When daily life follows predictable patterns, children can allocate their cognitive resources toward learning and growth instead of anxiety about the unknown. This predictability creates what psychologists call emotional safety, a state where children feel secure enough to take healthy risks and explore the world. The anxiety reduction that comes with predictable patterns is not merely about comfort, it's about neurological necessity. When children face unpredictable environments, their bodies often remain in heightened states of stress, with elevated cortisol levels that can interfere with healthy brain development. Research by developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth demonstrated that children with consistent caregiving showed significantly lower stress responses and greater confidence in exploration compared to those with unpredictable care. Picture a child's day as a road trip through unfamiliar territory. Without signs or a reliable map, every turn brings uncertainty and potential danger. Anxiety rises with each decision point. But when that same journey has clear signposts, reliable directions, and consistent rules of the road, the child can relax into the experience, noticing the scenery rather than constantly scanning for threats. This is how predictability transforms a child's daily experience, from one of vigilance to one of engagement. Fairness and consequences represents another crucial element in building trust. Children have an innate sense of justice that develops early, and they're keenly attuned to whether rules are applied consistently. When discipline varies based on a parent's mood or other arbitrary factors, children learn that the world is capricious rather than orderly. This undermines their ability to connect actions with outcomes, a fundamental skill for developing responsibility. The trust that develops through consistent, fair consequences extends beyond the parent-child relationship. Children who experience predictable discipline at home are better equipped to understand and accept boundaries in other contexts, from classrooms to friendships. They develop what psychologists call an internal locus of control, the understanding that their actions influence outcomes in predictable ways. This belief empowers children, helping them feel capable rather than helpless in navigating their world. One often overlooked aspect of predictable patterns is how they support children's developing autonomy. When children can anticipate routines, they can gradually take more responsibility for following them independently. A child who knows that backpacks are always prepared before bedtime can eventually take ownership of this task without prompting, building confidence and competence along the way. These small victories in self-management accumulate, creating a foundation of greater independence. Predictable patterns also create natural opportunities for connection. Bedtime rituals, family meals, and weekend traditions become touch points that strengthen family bonds. These regular moments of connection provide emotional nourishment that children carry with them throughout their day, offering reassurance even when physically separated from caregivers. Research consistently shows that these reliable connection points correlate with higher emotional intelligence and stronger family relationships. How might your family's predictable routines and fair consequences be silently building the trust and security your child needs to face life's inevitable uncertainties with confidence? Building the framework for lifelong resilience. Implementing a consistent framework in your parenting approach doesn't happen overnight. It requires intentional planning, clear communication, and the flexibility to adapt while maintaining core principles. Effective frameworks typically balance structure with appropriate flexibility, providing children with the security of boundaries while acknowledging their growing need for autonomy. This balance helps children internalize self-discipline rather than merely complying with external rules. The components of a resilience-building framework include clear expectations, consistent consequences, regular routines, and opportunities for children to practice responsibility within safe parameters. When these elements work together harmoniously, children develop not just compliance, but genuine accountability for their actions. They begin to understand that choices have predictable outcomes and that they have agency in creating positive results through their behavior. Think of your parenting framework as similar to tending a garden. A garden needs consistent care, regular watering, protection from extreme conditions, and proper boundaries to thrive. Yet within those consistent parameters, each plant grows in its unique way. Some need more support, others different nutrients, but all require the gardener's reliable attention and care. Similarly, your consistent parenting framework provides the conditions for your unique child to flourish according to their individual nature. Research in developmental psychology consistently shows that children raised with clear, consistent expectations demonstrate greater emotional regulation, academic achievement, and social competence than peers raised in either overly rigid or excessively permissive environments. This finding holds true across diverse cultural contexts and family structures, suggesting that consistency itself, rather than any particular parenting style, provides the foundation for healthy development. Consistency becomes especially critical during times of transition or stress. When children face challenges like a new school, family changes, or developmental leaps, their need for predictable structure intensifies. During these periods, maintaining family routines and clear expectations provides an anchor amidst change. This consistency communicates to children that while some things may change, core family values and care remain steadfast. Practical application of consistency includes creating visual schedules for young children, establishing clear family expectations that everyone understands, and ensuring that consequences logically connect to behaviors. When consequences are logical and consistently applied, children learn to trust the system rather than testing boundaries repeatedly to discover where the true limits lie. This trust conserves emotional energy for both parents and children, creating a more harmonious family environment. A consistent parenting framework serves as both anchor and launching pad, providing the security children need to develop accountability while building the resilience necessary to navigate life's inevitable challenges. By maintaining predictable routines and fair discipline, parents create the stable foundation that allows children to develop trust in their environment and confidence in their abilities, ultimately fostering the emotional security that supports healthy exploration and growth. The architecture of daily security. Building stability into family life requires intentional design. Much like architects create structures with both form and function in mind, parents can craft daily routines that serve practical purposes while nurturing emotional security. The most effective routines acknowledge both the logical sequence of activities needed and emotional transitions children experience throughout their day. Morning routines, for instance, should not only ensure teeth are brushed and backpacks packed, but also provide moments of connection that help children transition from home to school with confidence. Children experience time differently from adults. What may seem like a minor schedule change to a parent can feel significantly disruptive to a child who relies on predictable patterns. Developmental research shows that children's sense of security is closely tied to their ability to anticipate what comes next. When transitions occur at approximately the same times each day, children's bodies and minds can prepare accordingly, reducing stress and resistance. The architecture of consistency extends beyond daily schedules to encompass how we respond to both positive and challenging behaviors. When parents maintain consistent responses, celebrating efforts similarly each time, and addressing misbehaviors with predictable consequences, children develop accurate cause and effect thinking. This consistency allows them to internalize values rather than simply reacting to external controls. They learn to make good choices because they understand the inherent benefits, not merely to avoid punishment or gain rewards. Implementing consistent routines doesn't mean sacrificing flexibility or spontaneity. Instead, it means creating a reliable framework that can bend without breaking when special circumstances arise. Children benefit from understanding both the typical expectations and how exceptions are handled. Phrases like, "Usually we do bedtime at 8, but tonight is special because," help children maintain their sense of a predictable world even when variations occur. The ripple effects of consistent boundaries. Consistency in boundaries and consequences creates ripple effects throughout a child's development. The immediate benefit, more cooperative behavior, often receives the most attention, but the long-term psychological advantages are equally significant. Children who experience consistent discipline develop stronger executive functioning skills, including improved impulse control, better planning abilities, and enhanced emotional regulation. These skills serve as protective factors throughout childhood and adolescence, supporting academic success and healthy relationship development. The relationship between consistency and security operates in a feedback loop. When children can accurately predict responses to their behavior, they feel safer to explore and take appropriate risks. This security then enables them to internalize the very rules and boundaries that created it, gradually developing self-discipline that will serve them throughout life. Developmental psychologists call this process scaffolding, providing external structure that eventually becomes internalized as self-regulation. Envision discipline not as a series of punishments, but as a teaching curriculum that helps children understand how the social world operates. Like any effective curriculum, discipline requires consistent reinforcement of key concepts, building complexity as children develop greater understanding. When parents apply consequences inconsistently or unpredictably, it's akin to a teacher randomly changing the answers to math problems. Students cannot learn the underlying principles when the feedback makes no sense. Evidence-based parenting programs consistently emphasize the 3C approach: clear expectations, consistent consequences, and calm delivery. This approach works because it addresses both the cognitive and emotional needs of developing children. Clear expectations provide the information children need to succeed. Consistent consequences reinforce the connection between actions and outcomes. And calm delivery ensures that children focus on the lesson rather than becoming overwhelmed by emotional reactivity. When consistency falters, as it inevitably will at times, repair becomes essential. Perfect consistency isn't humanly possible, but acknowledging inconsistencies and explaining them helps preserve children's sense of a predictable world. A simple, "I didn't handle that the way I usually do because I was feeling frustrated. Next time I'll try to," teaches children that while people make mistakes, relationships can be repaired and expectations remain reliable. From theory to practice, building your family's framework. Translating consistency principles into daily family life requires both planning and adaptability. Begin by identifying your family's core values and the non-negotiable expectations that flow from them. These might include safety rules, respectful communication, and contribution to family life through age-appropriate responsibilities. From this foundation, develop specific routines and consequences that reflect these priorities. Morning and evening routines offer natural starting points for building consistency. Consider creating visual schedules for younger children or checklist apps for older ones that outline the expected sequence of events. These tools reduce the need for parental prompting and help children develop independence within a reliable framework. For many families, the predictable rhythm of first this, then that, reduces power struggles during transition times. The most effective consequence systems follow 4 key principles. 1. Relevance. Consequences logically connect to the behavior. 2. Respectfulness, delivered without shaming or punitive language. 3. Reasonableness, proportionate to the child's age and situation. 4. Reliability, consistently applied when similar situations arise. When these principles guide your response to challenging behaviors, children learn to trust both the system and their ability to succeed within it. They begin to understand that consequences aren't arbitrary punishments, but natural outcomes of choices. Consider the physical environment as another tool for building consistency. Organized spaces with clear systems, hooks for backpacks, designated homework areas, easily accessible chore supplies reinforce expectations and make success more likely. When children know where things belong and can access what they need independently, they're empowered to maintain routines with increasing autonomy. Family meetings provide a valuable forum for reviewing and refining your consistency framework. Even young children can participate in age-appropriate discussions about what's working well and what needs adjustment. These conversations reinforce that while expectations remain consistent, the specific systems for meeting them can evolve as children grow and family circumstances change. This collaborative approach helps children develop ownership of family routines rather than seeing them as impositions. Implementing consistency requires deliberate effort initially, but the payoff comes as children internalize expectations and develop self-regulation. By maintaining predictable routines, clear boundaries, and fair consequences, parents create the conditions for children to develop not just compliance, but true resilience, the capacity to navigate challenges and confidence born of knowing they have both reliable support and the skills to succeed. Consistency across different developmental stages. The expression of consistency necessarily evolves as children grow. What remains constant are the underlying principles, predictability, fairness, and clear expectations, while the specific applications adapt to developmental capacities. Toddlers need immediate concrete consequences delivered with simple language, while teenagers benefit from more collaborative approaches that respect their developing autonomy while maintaining core boundaries. Understanding these developmental differences helps parents maintain consistency without rigidity. Research into child development reveals that children's understanding of rules and consequences matures in predictable stages. Preschoolers typically view rules as absolute and externally imposed, while elementary-age children begin to understand the social pressures behind rules. Adolescents develop the capacity to question and reconsider rules based on abstract principles. Effective consistency acknowledges these evolving capacities, gradually shifting from external regulation toward collaborative boundary setting as children mature. The need for routine and predictability actually increases during transitions between developmental stages. When children are mastering new skills, whether learning to use the toilet, starting a new school, or navigating puberty, familiar routines provide stability that supports their confidence in tackling new challenges. During these periods, parents may need to temporarily simplify expectations in other areas, maintaining consistency in core routines while allowing flexibility as children adjust to new demands. One overlooked aspect of consistency across development involves adjusting communication while maintaining principles. A toddler might need physical guidance along with simple verbal instructions, while a 10-year-old can follow multi-step directions. A teenager benefits from discussions about the reasoning behind family rules. The consistency comes not from using identical approaches across ages, but from reliably matching communication to the child's current abilities while maintaining clear expectations. The balance of structure and flexibility. Creating a resilient environment requires finding the sweet spot between rigid structure and chaotic permissiveness. Research in developmental psychology consistently indicates that authoritative parenting, which combines high expectations with high responsiveness, produces the best outcomes across cultures and contexts. This approach maintains firm boundaries while acknowledging children's emotions and gradually increasing their autonomy within those boundaries. The ideal of consistent flexibility may sound contradictory, but it represents a sophisticated approach to parenting. Consistent flexibility means maintaining predictable core expectations while adapting how these expectations are met based on context and individual needs. For example, the expectation of respectful communication remains consistent, but how this looks might differ when a child is overtired versus well-rested, or how it's enforced might vary between a highly sensitive child and their more resilient sibling. Picture family life as a well-designed playground. The boundaries are clear and consistent. Children know precisely where the playground ends and potentially dangerous areas begin. With those reliable boundaries, however, exists tremendous freedom to explore, create, and develop skills at individual paces. Some children might immediately climb to the highest platform, while others gradually work up to it over months. The consistency comes from maintaining the boundaries, not from expecting identical experiences within them. Dr. Daniel Siegel, clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA School of Medicine, emphasizes what he calls the river of well-being. On one bank lies rigid control, on the other, chaos. The goal of effective parenting is to stay in the middle flow, avoiding both the inflexibility that stifles development and the inconsistency that creates anxiety. This balanced approach requires regular reflection on whether family structures are serving their intended purpose of creating security while supporting growth. The most resilient family systems incorporate regular opportunities to review and adjust routines and expectations. Rather than undermining consistency, these planned reflection points actually strengthen it by ensuring that family practices remain aligned with developmental needs and practical realities. Monthly family meetings, seasonal routine reviews, and annual family value discussions create space for thoughtful adaptation while maintaining the predictability children need. Research in family systems theory indicates that families who successfully navigate major transitions, whether developmental milestones, relocations, or family composition changes, maintain certain consistent elements while adapting others. This consistency amid change approach helps children develop adaptability without sacrificing their sense of security. During times of significant transition, wise parents identify a few anchor routines to maintain with particular attention while allowing flexibility in less essential areas. Special considerations, consistency in complex situations. Even the most committed parents face situations that challenge consistency. Shared custody arrangements, work schedule changes, health changes, and other life circumstances can disrupt established routines. In these situations, transparency becomes a critical component to maintaining children's sense of security. Age-appropriate explanations about why routines are changing, along with clear information about what will remain the same, help children keep their trust in a predictable world despite fluctuations. In co-parenting situations, perfect alignment between households may be unrealistic. But research shows that children can successfully adapt to different expectations in different environments when the differences are clearly explained and consistently maintained within each setting. The key factor is predictability within each context, rather than identical approaches across contexts. Phrases like, "in this household we," help children understand and navigate these differences without confusion. Children with certain neurological differences, including autism spectrum disorders and ADHD, often demonstrate an even greater need for consistency while simultaneously finding it more challenging to adapt to changes. For these children, visual schedules, transition warnings, and explicit instruction about expectations become especially important tools. The investment in creating highly predictable environments pays significant dividends in reduced anxiety and behavior changes for the children with these differences. The consistency principle extends to emotional responses as well as behavioral expectations. Children benefit tremendously when parents maintain reasonably consistent emotional availability despite their own stress or fatigue. This doesn't mean suppressing authentic feelings, but rather developing self-regulation strategies that allow for emotional consistency in interactions with children, even during challenging times. Simple acknowledgments like, "Mommy's feeling frustrated right now, but I'm still here for you," help maintain emotional predictability. A resilient environment balances the security of consistent expectations with the flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances and individual needs. By maintaining predictable routines and fair consequences while allowing appropriate autonomy, parents create the conditions for children to develop both accountability for their actions and the resilience to navigate life's inevitable challenges. This balanced approach supports children in building both the roots of security and the wings of independence they need to thrive in an ever-changing world. Building resilience in children through structure isn't about rules. It's about creating an environment where they can thrive with confidence. As we've explored throughout this chapter, consistency in routines and disciplinary approaches provides children with the security they need to develop trust in their world and in themselves. When children can anticipate what comes next, they develop an internal sense of control that reduces anxiety and builds self-assurance. The predictable patterns we establish become their roadmap for navigating life's challenges. Fair consequences teach them that their actions matter and that they can learn from mistakes in a supportive environment. By implementing these principles, you're not simply organizing your family's day, you're laying the groundwork for your child's emotional security and future success. The stable framework you provide today becomes the foundation upon which they build their own resilience tomorrow. The Blueprint Method: Creating Your Family Stability Framework. Creating stability through structure doesn't happen overnight. It's a thoughtful process that evolves with your family. Here's how to build your personalized stability framework. 1. Establish core routines, 1 to 2 days. Identify the most important daily anchors for your family: wake-up times, meals, homework, and bedtime. Discuss with your children why these routines matter, explaining how predictability helps everyone feel secure and prepared. 2. Create visual guides, 1 afternoon. Design age-appropriate visual schedules that your children can reference. For younger kids, use pictures of activities. For older children, create charts they can check independently. Position these guides where they're easily visible. 3. Practice consistent implementation, 2 to 3 weeks. This is the foundation phase. Commit to maintaining your core routines, even when it's challenging. Notice how your children respond to the predictability and adjust timing as needed while keeping the sequence consistent. 4. Establish clear expectations and consequences, 1 week. Have a family meeting to discuss rules and their purpose. Together, decide on fair, logical consequences for when rules aren't followed. Write these down and ensure everyone understands them. 5. Review and refine, 30 minutes weekly. Schedule a weekly check-in to discuss what's working and what needs adjustment. Include your children in these conversations. Their input increases buy-in and teaches them valuable planning skills. 6. Plan for transitions, 1 to 2 days as needed. Before major life changes, school transitions, moves, etc., create a preparation plan. Talk through upcoming changes with your children and adjust routines gradually rather than suddenly. 7. Build in recovery practices, daily, 10 to 15 minutes. Designate specific times for emotional reset, quiet reading, brief meditation, or simply talking about feelings. These moments teach children how to self-regulate within the family structure. 8. Balance flexibility with consistency, ongoing. When unexpected events disrupt routines, acknowledge the change openly. Explain what's happening and how you'll return to normal patterns, reinforcing that temporary disruption doesn't mean abandoning structure altogether. 9. Model self-discipline, daily. Children learn by watching. Demonstrate following your own routines and openly talk about how structure helps you manage your responsibilities and feelings. 10. Celebrate structural success, weekly. Recognize when your family successfully maintains routines, not with elaborate rewards, but with specific acknowledgement. I noticed how you got ready for bed without reminders all week. That responsibility shows how much you're growing. Throughout this audiobook, we've journeyed through the essential elements that help children develop into emotionally intelligent, confident individuals. We began by exploring how to nurture emotional awareness and healthy expression in your children, giving them vocabulary and permission to understand their inner landscape. We then examined how thoughtful, purposeful communication creates the connection that all children crave, fostering their sense of being truly seen and understood. Building on this foundation, we discussed cultivating confidence through age-appropriate independence and the courage to face challenges. Now, with this final chapter on creating stability through structure, we've completed the framework that supports children in becoming resilient, self-assured individuals capable of navigating life's complexities. The consistency you provide in routines, boundaries, and responses becomes the reliable ground from which your child can safely explore, make mistakes, learn, and grow. When children know what to expect, they're freed from the unnecessary worry and can direct their energy toward development and discovery. Remember that perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. The occasional missed bedtime or schedule disruption won't undermine your efforts. What matters is the overall pattern of reliability and thoughtful structure that you create day after day. By raising your children with clarity, emotional clarity, communication clarity, confidence-building clarity, and the clarity of consistent structure, you're giving them an invaluable gift. This intentional approach to parenting doesn't just shape their childhood, it equips them with the internal resources they'll draw upon throughout their lives. Your child's future self will thank you from the stability you're creating today. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, you're providing them with the secure base from which they can venture forth, always knowing they have a safe harbor to return to. This is the essence of purposeful parenting and the greatest foundation you can offer your child. Conclusion. As we reach the conclusion of our journey through purposeful parenting, I hope you found not just strategies, but also reassurance and confidence in your ability to raise emotionally intelligent, secure children. The path of parenting is never straight or predictable. It winds and curves, sometimes doubling back on itself. Yet with clarity of purpose and the tools we've explored together, you're well equipped to navigate this remarkable journey. Throughout this audiobook, we've discovered that effective parenting isn't about perfection, but about presence. It's about showing up consistently for our children, understanding their unique needs, and responding with empathy and intention. The neuroscience is clear. Children thrive not when we get everything right, but when we repair connections after inevitable missteps and create an atmosphere of emotional safety. Remember the core principles that have guided our exploration. Building emotional intelligence begins with recognizing and validating feelings, both yours and your child's. Consistent routines provide the scaffolding that helps children feel secure in an unpredictable world. Calm communication, even in challenging moments, models the regulation skills your child is developing. Confidence emerges when children are given appropriate autonomy within loving boundaries. Many families have shared how transformative these approaches can be, like Emma, who discovered that her son's bedtime battles dramatically decreased once she implemented a predictable evening ritual that honored his need for connection before separation. Or Michael, who found that by naming his own frustrations out loud, he gave his daughter permission to express her difficult emotions too. While the strategies in this audiobook are supported by research and clinical experience, I acknowledge that every family is beautifully unique. You might find that certain approaches need adjustment to honor your cultural background, your child's temperament, or your family's circumstances. This isn't a weakness of the method, but rather an opportunity to practice the very attunement we've been discussing, seeing your child for who they truly are and responding accordingly. As you move forward, consider selecting just one area to focus on initially. Perhaps you'll start with establishing a more predictable morning routine, or maybe you'll practice emotional labeling during everyday interactions. Small, consistent steps create significant change over time. Remember that implementation isn't about immediate perfection, but about progress through practice. You may encounter resistance from your child, from family members with different parenting philosophies, or even from within yourself as old patterns attempt to reassert themselves. When this happens, pause and reconnect with your deeper parenting purpose. What kind of relationship do you want with your child? What values matter most to you? Let these answers guide your next steps. The work you're doing now ripples far beyond your immediate family. By raising children who understand their emotions, who communicate effectively, and who believe in their ability to face challenges, you're contributing to a more compassionate and resilient next generation. This might be the most important work you ever do. I encourage you to create a community of support around your parenting journey. Share what you're learning, ask questions, and connect with others who are similarly committed to purposeful parenting. The path is easier when walked together. As you finish this audiobook and return to the beautiful, messy reality of family life, carry with you the knowledge that your presence, your imperfect, trying, loving presence, is precisely what your child needs most. In your arms, under your watchful eye, and within your loving boundaries, they will grow into the person they're meant to become. Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. Dr. John Trainer. This has been Raising Kids with Clarity, a purposeful parenting roadmap to cultivate emotional intelligence, healthy routines, calm communication, and secure confidence in your child. Written by Hazel Lawrence. Narrated by Devin Caraway.
We appreciate you tuning in to one of our captivating audiobooks. For more immersive experiences, here is another audiobook we're certain you'll enjoy. Don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing what you loved about this audiobook in the comments section below, and subscribing for more captivating audiobooks like this. Thanks for being a part of our audiobook community.